You are now entering a dangerous liberty zone where God-given natural rights are held sacred and exercised. This is your warning. Tyranny, fascism, and censorship will not be tolerated. Ideas will be exchanged freely. Rigorous debate and open discourse is encouraged. If you are weak and your beliefs are fragile, you should leave now. Prepare yourself. We are now live on the Dangerous Liberty Podcast. All right, folks. Good evening here on a Wednesday night. I'm not 100% sure that my audio is coming through on my phone and the space. Let me know. Give me a sound check. I need to hear from you. This is always the problem, Ben. Talk to me, yeah, Goose.
I hear you.
All right. So, yeah, you hear me through. Did you hear the music play for the intro?
No.
Yeah, that's the problem. That's the problem. You stay there. I'm going to log out and log back in. All right, folks. So for those of you watching on YouTube, you guys have done this before. We're going to be we're kind of prioritizing the X space, but I want to do this on video, and then we can also play audio and media and things like that through here. But there's always issues with X spaces, or they're a little not perfect. Not perfect. Technology is always an issue. Yeah, see, still not coming through the audio for some reason.
I didn't want to say anything because I didn't want to interrupt the intro if it was there.
That's all right. No, you were fine. We will get this fixed. I got all the right buttons toggled. Let me disconnect and reconnect from the. See what we got. All right, there we go. There we go. All right. You guys want me to replay the intro for you guys in the space? I'm just joking. I'm just joking. SK Double Dub, I'm glad you're here tonight. I'm make sure that you get a invitation to speak. And anybody else who wants to speak, start raising hands. I'm gonna send an invite to Rando Cat. A couple of other things I want to cover real quick. But again, folks, thank you guys for tuning in tonight. Let's see. I'm going to go ahead and throw down some guest invites for those of you that are watching on social media. We'll give you a chance to speak about some things as well if you got something. One of the things I do want to highlight, if you haven't watched it already, I posted on YouTube and on X. And I'm going to make Jen a co-host as well. I just cut a video. Once again, proving that Baron Coleman, all the guy does is lie. All the guy does is lie. Make sure you guys go watch that, check that out. I mean, it's just so obvious too. And again, no matter how much you show his followers that he's just completely lies every single time, they will defend him no matter what, no matter how obvious it is. It's wild to watch. We are in a cult culture for sure between Candace Owens, Baron Coleman. They're capitalizing on this. And if you want complete trash, and the funny thing is too, just recently, and I covered this in the video, but just recently he was on Julian Dory with Joseph Scott Morgan. And, this guy's a forensic pathologist. I don't think this is his exact title, but basically, and like literally he debunks the last 6 months of everything that Baron Coleman has been pushing. And I guess he agrees with him. I don't know. But, it's kind of funny that I came to those conclusions back in, I don't know, November, December, because I was actually out doing work. And so me and Joseph Scott Morgan, we're on the same page. Okay. We believe that the exploding mic is absolutely ridiculous. We believe that Charlie Kirk was shot, that, all the evidence lines up. And I don't know what Baron Coleman believes at this point. I don't know if after hearing from Joseph Scott Morgan that he's abandoned the exploding mic theory. He should. It's retarded. Don't know. But I mean, is Joseph Scott Morgan, is he paid by TPUSA? Is he an Israeli shill? How did we come to the same conclusions? While Baron Coleman was sitting in his desk in front of his computer talking about Google Trends, some of us were actually out doing actual work. We were going to UVU. We were having people that had specialized expertise in the areas that we're discussing. I guarantee you, Kyle Seraphin, for instance, who I disagree with on a lot of politics right now. He's a friend of mine. With that being said, Kyle Seraphin is somebody that I had on early, October 2nd, as a matter of fact, because that was one of the clips that Barron pulled. And I went back and watched that entire podcast. And, it was a trip down memory lane. But it also showed me how consistent I have been with all of this. And, with him on, we were going through the charging documents. And he's like, Gary, look, I have friends in the FBI office there in Utah. And by the way, Kyle Seraphin has lawsuits against the FBI. He is no friend of the Trump administration. But, he's going through the evidence, going through the charge documents. Is like, if anything was awry, like literally guys I know in the FBI that are not friends, that aren't necessarily all that happy. He had already reached out to them by October 2nd, like, hey, something weird's going on. Reach out to me. Let me know. But they didn't, because there isn't anything odd going on. And the amount of people that would have to be involved in this conspiracy at this point. I mean, it's nuts. It's nuts. So anyways, a lot going on. SK, I have still not had a chance to kind of go through with, the whole thing about the controversy of Data Republican. Data Republican's a friend of the channel. I was working all weekend, and I saw a bunch of drama going on with her. Like, I have no reason not to believe her. I think she is a person that operates in absolutely good faith. But if you feel like it, SK, and you can tell me that, this is better discussion offline, but I think you guys kind of had a podcast on this. You will just, I don't know, kind of the cliff notes of things, kind of let us know what's going on with Data Republican.
I love how you ask me a question and say the Cliff Notes version. It's
you
like
don't have to give
know
me Cliff Notes. Like, we got time. We got time.
I'm just kidding.
Go as long as you need to make sure that everybody has a clear understanding of what's happening, at least from your perspective.
Yes. Well, from everything that I know, someone gave Data Republican some documents that had some markings on them that were a little questionable, and they were saying that they could release them, do whatever they wanted as far as releasing them. And she was like questioning it, like, there are these markings, but it was given to me by people that like know what they're doing. And it freaked her out. So she was like, I'm not doing this. And I feel like this is like a setup, because I think there's been several things going on for a while that, there have been people that have targeted her multiple times. And so she had every right to, question, is this something that's going to get me in trouble? Like, should I do this? Should I not do this? And she went and posted on X and said, I feel like I'm being set up. Like, these documents were given to me. They told me to leak them, and I am not, because I feel like it's probably a crime. And I guess the person that gave her the documents was like, replied to her and was like, LOL, I'm the one that was talking about those documents, and those were my documents, or something like that. And nobody was setting you up. You can release them here. I'll release them. And then posted all of the documents, I guess. And they very quickly worked it out. But like, all of the candy cults, all the Cantifa people, and like the people that have been targeting her for a long time are using it as an opportunity to go after her and say she's a Fed and all of these crazy things, when she's the worst Fed ever. If she's literally going to the internet, instead of posting something that was given to her from people that you should be able to trust, saying, here, release these, go through them, put it together, release it. And instead of doing that for the clicks and the views and the likes and all of that, she's like, this doesn't feel right. There's still markings on here that shouldn't be on here. And so she didn't do it. She went and told everyone instead of doing it. And now everyone's calling her a Fed, which is just, I can't do the mental gymnastics required for someone that's so honest. Instead of doing that for the clicks, the views, the likes, whatever, she goes and tells everyone this is what happened. and now she's a Fed. Apparently she's a Fed. So that's what's going on. A lot of people have defended her. Sarah Adams posted and was like, look, even with my experience and my background, if somebody handed me those documents with those markings on them, I would think that the FBI was setting me up.
Yeah.
So, I mean, she did the right thing. And this should just prove to everyone once again, if you had any doubt, she's one of the most honest and genuine people you can find on the internet. She's not doing anything for anyone. She's doing what she feels is right. And if something doesn't feel right to her, she's not going to do it.
Yeah. I mean, it makes sense to me, and that, jives with everything that I know about her. I've been following her for a long time. Obviously, we've had her on the show. It's super unfortunate, to say the least. So, yeah.
It's really, I feel so bad for her because she gets attacked all the time from every angle, but this seems very coordinated because if you pay attention, it's all the same people that have been supporting Candace that are just going at her like full force. And Candace has even made comments about this, and calling her a Fed and all of this is just absolutely insane. I don't even know. And I mean, Gary, Dad, a Republican, and I are like friends. We talk every day.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, people saying that she's a Fed is just, it blows my mind because I know better. And I mean, I don't see how anyone can even try to do the mental gymnastics to claim that she's some type of a Fed and that she's running some type of psyop on people. I just don't get it. I don't get it.
Yeah, I mean, the reality is, anytime that someone disagrees with you, that's what they're going to go with. And, I've had it done to me, going way back. I mean, my God, I remember like day 2 after Charlie Kirk, and I'm making videos telling people, hey, you know what? It wasn't a palm gun. It wasn't a palm gun. Fed. You're paid by Israel. Like, I'm like, what are you talking about? How does Israel even come into this? But these are effective, easy, irresponsible smears. And let's say she is a Fed. Let's say I'm a Fed, for instance. I'm not paid by anybody else. So we're clear. Let's say I am. Let's say she is. Like, what is the argument? So if the Fed argument is better than yours, you don't get to just undermine it and toss it away because, you're saying it's coming from someone that's working for the federal government. By and far, like, there's a lot of great people that work for the federal government. There's a lot of dishonest people that work for the federal government too. But guess what? There's also a lot of shitty people that spend their lives on social media. There's a lot of shitty podcasters. And I mean, shitty as in, these are just bad people. They're dishonest. So, take it for what it is, but I don't know. We got to start applying some common sense.
Well, and I will say she's always worked with Doge, like on and off. She's always worked with Doge, and I do know that there's some association as of just a few weeks ago with I think Department of War.
I just saw.
Yeah. And so there has been association, but I, even talking to her every day, don't know exactly what that is. I'm sure I would assume that knowing her skill set, she's probably doing some things with them regarding her skill set. It's not like she's there. I do not think for 1 second that she is there doing anything bad or that she's trying to deceive anyone. I think she's doing literally everything that she can every single day to work hard and try to expose the corruption in our government and try to stop as much of the fraud and waste and abuse and expose all of the things she can expose because she absolutely hates communism and she doesn't want that taking over this country. She truly works hard every single day to do what's right for this country, the same way you do, Gary, the same way that I do. I don't make any money from this.
Yeah.
I do this because I want this country to remain the country that I know and love. And I want my kids to be able to enjoy that. And my grandkids, my great grandkids in the future. I want want this country to remain the same. I do not want it being taken over by these crazies. And I think we all just have to do our part. And when you see somebody working hard to try to make change and actual change comes from their work, you don't go attack them because they're then all of a sudden a Fed because they're lending their talents to the federal government. That doesn't mean they're working for the federal government.
Yeah. And there's a lot of people that are working for the federal government, by the way, that are holding back the deep state, that are protecting Americans on a daily basis. Like, I don't even it's such a low IQ, childish smear. You know, like, I mean, technically every single freaking service man and woman is a Fed. Are these bad people? Like, I don't get it. I don't get it. You know, I don't get it.
Well, Gary, I was going to say too, like, they would want to discredit her as much as possible because she is doing a great job at, exposing corruption. And she's one of the very few people I've ever seen actually ratio Candace Owens too. Of course they want to discredit her.
Yeah, absolutely.
Gary, how are you projecting your voice like this over into Obscure Moderator's little box over there? How are you doing this? Because you guys are the same people, right?
We are the same person. It's a mix. Sometimes we're the same person. Sometimes he's an employee of mine. Like, this is like, you get called a Fed or you get called an employee of Gary. Gary's paying somebody's paying me, and then I'm paying everybody else, apparently. But like, people
Dude,
work.
if I got paid every time somebody says I get paid, I would be so rich right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's crazy. And just like he said, he's absolutely right. Obscure Moderator, you're absolutely right. This is a coordinated campaign to discredit the person that's literally dismantling the entire funding structure for the left and ensuring that foreign money cannot prop up any of these NGOs that then prop up all of these candidates anymore, tracing all of the money flow, figuring out how to solve those problems. I don't know if you guys know this, but they've already made changes to the IRS reporting. The way NGOs are going to be reporting, there's a different box that you have to check. There was a whole congressional hearing in February that nobody paid attention to. Even our own Congress didn't even show up for this hearing. A few of them came in and sat down and asked a question. And as soon as they asked their question and the answer was over, they got up and left because there was some big hearing or vote going on in another room. So nobody paid any attention to this entire hearing where they talked about the foreign funding of all these NGOs and how all these NGOs are able to claim that they do not accept foreign funding when they actually do. Because in this hearing, one of the members of Congress said to one of these people that runs an NGO, you said earlier in this hearing that you didn't accept any foreign funding. You're under oath. Do you want to change that now? And he said, no, we don't take any foreign funding. And he said, well, you received X amount of dollars from whatever that guy's name is, the Swedish guy. And he was like, well, but it's not foreign funding because that foreign guy started a foundation or some sort of NGO here in the United States. And he just puts his money into that. And then that NGO gives it to them, or that foundation gives it to the other NGOs. And that's how they get their foreign funding. And now that's going to be stopped. There's a new way they're going to have to be reporting on their taxes so that if any of these people are getting any foreign funding. These are all things that are happening because of work that people like Data Republican have been doing.
Yeah. And also Data Republican also did created an entire new program so they could actually track different contracts and things like that and cut waste during the Doge time. Data Republican has done more for this country already than 90% of the people in Congress. Let's just be real.
Yes, that's facts. Actual change has happened. Neville Roy Singham is being investigated. There's a grand jury, I believe, that's been impaneled for Neville Roy Singham. And all of that came out because of the amplification that she was able to do and get the attention of people in Congress who then decided to push harder. Because the guy's been, let's face it, the guy's been under investigation for like a decade at least. But now they're actually having to move because so many people on X were seeing all of this information over and over and over again, and they couldn't ignore it anymore. They had to start making moves to stop this. And this is what continues to happen when you have people like her that are doing this work and amplifying this work. It creates actual change, and it shines a light on all of the corruption. And then we have to get louder about how we stop that so that we can be able to get this country back on the right track, and we don't have all of these foreign countries pulling all of these strings, because that's what's happening. And all these people that are going around saying America first, and they're repeating all of this bullshit that Thomas Massey and Candace Owens and all these people are saying. They are doing the work of foreign countries as they are saying America first. And it's crazy, which is why watching them all turn on Data Republican, it's like, oh my gosh, these people are really pissed. These foreign countries are pissed that she's cutting off their ways to be able to fund all of this stuff. These foreign countries, the left is pissed because that's where most of their money comes from. Act Blue's in trouble. Act Blue they're the ones that take in all of the donations for like the entirety of the left, and all of the leftist NGOs, all of it almost flows through Act Blue.
Yeah.
So they have every reason to target her and try to discredit her. And that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to discredit her and make people not believe her and not trust her when she's given no one any reason to trust them. And their justification for not trusting her is even more crazy. She went straight to X to tell all of her followers and everyone on X, this is what's happening. They handed me these documents. It didn't feel right. It didn't look right. There were classification markings on it. I felt like I was being set up. She didn't name any names. The person that gave them to her commented on her post, which is how she got outed. And it just went from there. I mean, she was being honest. That is not a puppet. They're like, oh, she's a puppet for the federal government. And, she's a federal, propaganda puppet. Are you serious? She's the worst propaganda puppet on the planet because she was handed documents, and instead of capitalizing on that and making money off of it by posting it on the internet, she came out and said, this is what happened and it doesn't feel right. And I feel like I'm being set up. Worst puppet ever.
I couldn't agree more. Yeah, look, I mean, again, what has Candace Owens done for this country? What has Candace Owens done? What have the Owens Schroyers of the world done for this country? What has any of these people done? All they've done is continue to bitch about this president, complain about what's happening, to tell you, like, black pill everybody, and tell you that, what we should be doing is allowing the left to win the midterms. And ultimately what they're going to tell you to do is allow the left to win 2028. Why? There's a real simple answer to all this: because they're the left. They're the left. I don't know if they were part of the right, or it was convenient to be the right, or it was financially beneficial to be part of the right. And then as soon as Trump gets in, and I don't know, Owen Schroyer gets a pardon from this president after he was thrown in jail by the last president, by the very people that he's telling you should be put into office. Like, how insane do you have to be? Like, tell me there's something wrong. Like, I get thrown in prison for protesting, for exercising my constitutional rights by an entire party, and then the opposition party comes in, the president of the United States himself comes and gives me a pardon, and I'm like, you know what? Screw this president, screw this party. I want to go with the party that threw me in freaking prison. That's where I want to. That makes so much sense. Like, get out of here. Like, I don't even know what's happening. I feel like I'm taking crazy pills when I watch what's going on. Hey, real quick, Doc, you were up first, but I'm going to let Dexter jump in. We got Hidden Path with Carbon Mike. Make sure you guys go follow him. We just had him on the show just a little while ago. Speaking of political prisoners, Dexter, jump in here and give us some words from inside the joint, bro.
Hey, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Hey, good to be on the space and have a lot of fun on the podcast this evening, brother. Thank you again. And in keeping with what you all have been talking about as I've been looking in this space, I'm here to announce that I'm endorsing Kathy Hochul.
For those of you that don't know, Dexter's in prison right now because
young black kids growing up in the Bronx who don't even know what the word a computer is.
Where is this audio coming from? I have some weird audio. Anyways, but yeah, like he's in prison because of Kathy Hochul and the crazy New York gun laws out there. But that's a perfect example. Perfect example, Dexter. Like you get out, you're like, you know what? You know what? I want to vote for more gun control, and I want to vote for Kathy Hochul and the Democrat Party that put me in jail.
This shit, Gary. There's levels to this shit, Gary. All we have to do is let them win the next couple of national elections, and everything will be wonderful.
That's right. The reason you got in prison is because the party that threw you in prison wasn't winning enough. That's what we got to do, Dexter.
Exactly. We weren't doing We weren't doing socialism hard enough. Oh my God. I mean, I have to say, like, I'm hearing a side of things that, I don't get. I get, snippets of news and stuff. We have an AP newsletter app on the tablet. We've got Reuters News. Like this stuff you're all talking about. I had no idea that there was a person out there called Beta Republican. I'm like, why did I not know this person? You know what I'm saying? That's someone I want to like work with. You know what I'm saying? Oh, Beta?
You don't get the X app in prison?
Hell no. Hell no. No public internet access whatsoever. We're behind a firewall, and we get a handful of news apps and a handful of like curated podcasts, and that's it.
So how are you doing this right now? You're going through Carl to be on the phone. Is that what's happening right now?
Exactly. Okay. I call him. He calls you. That's right. Yeah.
Got it.
I was not really aware. I mean, I guess there's been some kind of schism, right? Because I've actually been on Owens. I've been on InfoWars with Owen Schroyer. He interviewed me a couple times when I was still outside, right? Pre-trial phase. And so I didn't even know there was this huge schism and all these people making about faces, and I had no idea. That's crazy.
Oh yeah, so there's a huge schism, including again, I used to be a big fan of Alex Jones. Like he is now completely against the president and completely against MAGA, and he's part of the Doomer, the Black Pillars. It's nuts. We got Owen Schroyer, Candace Owens, Tucker Carlson. We can go down the list. There's a whole bunch of people that have become disenchanted with the right. President Trump isn't doing enough, fast enough. The Epstein files this, the Epstein files that, and a lot of this is being pushed by foreign adversaries through social media, as well as political adversaries too. There's a lot going on that we've been covering for like the last 6 to 8 months, and I don't know, maybe you and I need to have a phone call sometime. I'll try to do my best to catch you up on all of it.
Yeah,
it's a lot.
Yeah, I mean, he definitely catch me up because of it. I'm telling you, I don't. I mean, listen, maybe this is naive, but I don't, and just maybe this is a function of like where I am right now. But I can't imagine anyone who could persuade me that like the best thing to do is. And I got plenty of criticisms for Trump.
Me too.
I
don't know a single conservative that doesn't have criticisms of Trump, that doesn't have criticism. We just spent the last 2 hours pretty much. You, me, and Zeke, talking, really criticizing the Republican Party and the fact that they become a party of weakness, and just completely ineffective and feckless. So, like, there's plenty of criticisms, but we have this whole element of the conservative right that wants to convince you that essentially Donald Trump is actually worse than Joe Biden, and it's nuts to me. Yeah,
which is that's insane. That, like, I mean, this, or the idea, you hear this a lot, like there's no difference between the parties. I mean, that's flatly insane.
Yes,
right.
That is literally their favorite saying right now. All of those people, oh, you're still stuck under the paradigm of the right and the left. Yeah, I am, because you know what? There's a real paradigm difference between the right and the left. It couldn't be more clear.
I'm living inside the paradigm difference between the right. I'm living it.
It's quite the dichotomy.
Come on, right? It's like if I lived in Texas, are you kidding me? not only would this not have been the case, I would have probably known to have sheriff's deputies who would come to my barbecues, and I'd be doing some side business, working on their hunting weapons. You know what I'm saying? It's like, listen, it's obvious that, well, I'm preaching to the choir. I just don't know what could compel someone to go beyond mere criticism to say there's no difference. Maybe these people live in states where different it's obvious to them. But, for better or for worse, I live in a state where the difference is very obvious to me. It's not academic at all, so I don't know. I don't know what that is. That's crazy.
Yeah, you and me both. I'm still trying to figure it out. Doc, go ahead, buddy. Thank you for being patient.
Oh, anytime. If Dexter's able to get on and get his voice heard, that takes priority every time. I'm not mad about it. And good to hear from you, Dexter. It's good to hear you, brother. And shout out to Carl. But real quick, with this whole thing with Data Republican, everybody playing who's the Fed. This is all looking like a rerun to me. I don't know how familiar you are with the events here in the West, particularly in Nevada and Oregon, from 2014 to 2016. But we had a lot of momentum. We had a lot of disparate people showing up and saying, "Hey, this shit ain't right, and we're not going to tolerate it." And behind that, there were a significant number of CIs who were infiltrating the various groups, and one of them presented Ammon Bundy. Think of him what you will. I have my own reservations about him, but with keys to a warming center at a wildlife refuge at a bird sanctuary, with this idea to go take it over, and the individual that came up with this plan and the keys and all of the associated things that let them think it was a good idea turned out to be a CI, somebody the FBI had picked up on cocaine charges, and he was told that if you give us some defendants out of this movement, we'll make that go away, and that's exactly what happened. Fast forward to Burns in 2016, and what you had at the end of it was a massive game of who's the Fed, right?
Right.
So that immediately, the various events that went along with that, the killing of Lavoy Finicum, et cetera, it basically destroyed the movement that was built. It destroyed any momentum that had come out of the previous 2 years, and it was real easy from there for the feds to make an example out of the people who participated at Bunkerville in 2014. They'd gotten a little bit of a black eye there, and they were looking for some payback. So what we're seeing is that playing out all over again. We saw it after J6 too. They'd kind of refined it a little bit, but it was the same playbook, and now it's happening again. If it works, why wouldn't you do it again?
Yeah. And it's easy. It's lazy. It's not hard. It is effective. I mean, that's what's going on with all this. And unfortunately, it's a shame that we have such a gullible population that this stuff works. It's like, what happened to actual arguments? What happened to actual things that you want to discuss, or whatever it is? It's just, I don't know. It's nuts to me to watch all this play out.
Yeah. Well, it came up again in the chat during your podcast. That who's the Fed, who's the enemy, who's this, who's that, and at the end of the day, and you guys talked about it a bit. The GOP have been weak and feckless, and demonstrated that they're not much use. Okay, so if anybody steps up, well, now it's more convenient to eat our own than it is to move forward and take it to the enemy.
No, this is exactly right. And the same thing goes with, Israeli shill, you're paid by Israel. Like, I don't know why any of this stuff even works. While what's really happening is through social media, we have Russia paying people. And again, I've talked about this. I'm not saying that they're paying them directly. I'm saying, we have a whole bunch of bots that are pushing propaganda, that are giving people views, that are influencing the influencer through their views. So, I mean, that's what's going on with all this. And, we've talked about that at length. Rando Cat, go ahead, buddy.
Hey, Gary. Hey, everybody. So I don't know if you came across one of Massey's posts who's pushing for the repeal of the 17th Amendment. So the 17th Amendment gives direct election for senators. So I also know he tried to run for Senate last year, I believe. So essentially what this is doing is it's pushing for corrupt politicians to install more corrupt politicians instead of giving people the ability to elect their senators.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that actually may be trending here soon. And on top of that, apparently Massey has favorable polls for president. So yeah, there's a lot going on that Massey is making moves, and yeah, I just don't trust that guy one bit.
No, first of all, he couldn't even win his own incumbent race. There's no way that he's going to be a viable presidential candidate. I mean, come on, people. Where are these polls coming from? Well, you know what? I don't even need to know. Whoever gave those polls is probably on Owens Schroyer's X, or Candace Owens' X. Oh yeah, you got 98%. I feel like I'm listening to a poll in North Korea. Yeah, it's just as viable and just as legitimate. So, yeah, you
Man,
can't.
And he also posted today, we're not voting our way out of this, which is just that classic online pouty whiner thing, total doomer. Actually, voting is pointless. Don't bother doing that. We would call him a glowy. We would just say this is actually what a Fed would do in that stereotypical thing where they call everyone Feds, is be there's no point in voting. You're going to have to do other means. I'm going to vague post about it. Here's a website where you can start gathering materials to build a bomb, and definitely not an FBI honeypot. So obnoxious.
Well, Blake Neff, everybody, for those of you watching right now on YouTube, he's on the, we were talking earlier a lot about the important thing here, and exactly what Charlie would have wanted, was to make sure that people are mobilized, energized, and get out there. And we need to win the midterms. And that should be the point of every person out there. Definitely the answer is not let the left win. There is a difference between the left. We can vote our way out of this. We're not even in something right now. The country has problems. But what we don't need to do, if we want more problems and a deeper hole to dig ourselves out of, let's go ahead and let the left win. Blake, you guys at TPUSA, you guys specialize in getting out the vote. Let's talk a little bit about some of the efforts that you guys are doing right now, or maybe just some of your advice.
We have two different classes. I spoke to one that was maybe 15 people, and there'll be another that I bet was about 30 if those are typical. And it's training people to be full-time, get out the vote, ballot chasers here in Arizona, because that's our approach. Is we hire full-time people to specialize in getting people who are marginal Republican voters, they haven't voted every time, they often forget, or they're low motivation, any number of things. And we have their names because that sort of voter data is public, whether you voted in primaries and all of that, or we're able to model that this person is highly likely to be a Republican voter, but is unlikely to vote. There's a lot of people like that. We're training those people to get out. It pissed me off so much. The other day, someone was howling. I think it was another Candace post that's complaining, you say we're grifting. You guys raised $40 million at Mar-a-Lago last year. Yeah, we did. Because we actually do things, Candace. We actually go and we raise money to do this, get out the vote. You think all those people working full time and get out the vote is freaking free? Of course it's not. And then these people who they raise money exclusively for themselves to enrich themselves, who would die before they would spend money on a cause or on helping the country or on like anyone other than themselves. They like throw these outrageous temper tantrums. And like, meanwhile, this is in fact what Charlie cared about. Mobilizing people, get out the vote, like try to deliver wins. As you'd say, Charlie 100% believed we could vote our way out of it, or if we couldn't, that you had a moral duty to try regardless. Like, I'm amped up tonight.
Yeah, I'm like, what? How do we get out of this? Like, if we can't vote our way out of this. I mean, what is their alternative? That we just, take up arms and I don't know, overthrow the government? Like, what are they even offering as far as some sort of solution? I haven't nailed that one down.
It genuinely gets at, I think, like what the truth of this is, which is for so many of them, this is a purely like they don't live life in the real world. They experience this as like an online soap opera, which is pretty obvious from their conduct in a million other ways that this is like a TV show for them. And so what that means is like when they say we can't vote our way out of this, it doesn't mean anything. It means nothing at all because like these people don't want to do anything else. Like they're chronically people who avoid, like they don't like responsibility. They don't like having to like take a role in things. They like to sit online and talk and complain. And then saying we can't vote our way out of this is just one of their, 18 different scripted ways of doom posting because people love getting emotionally worked up. Like it's somewhat addictive to get an emotional high, even off of bad stuff. Like This is why people like watching horror movies. That's why they like watching sad movies. Like powerful emotions are kind of satisfying in their own right, even if they're not joy, happiness, or whatever. And like that's a hugely addictive thing, and these people are hooked on it. And so they're hooked on getting outraged about stuff online. They're hooked on being just very overwrought. They're hooked on claiming like we've been betrayed by everybody. And then if they were able to actually seriously do anything about it, that would carry a slight moral condemnation on them that, this is a fixable thing and they actually decline to do anything serious about it. So it's much easier and much more flattering to them to just say it's all hopeless. But like, I'm trying to sound the alarm. I'm trying to tell people what's really up. I'm a brave truth teller. Like, it is the easiest thing in the world to have a take on the internet. Charlie was special not because he was another guy who had a take on the internet. He was special because he had a take and he did something about it, something real.
Yeah. Well, it's easy to have a take from the couch too, and that's what's going. Like, this is the problem. This is why I know a lot of people, and it's not a perfect description, but I do like the term the woke right, because what we have in the woke right is that where the grievance culture of the left has absolutely infected the right, and that's what they're doing. They just sit around and bitch and moan. It's like that they have no answers. Their answer is, oh, we need a third party. I bet you, which, is being led by Tucker. There, I guarantee you there's some clips out there of Tucker Carlson on Fox News or God knows where else talking about how stupid it is to create a third party. Because he's not dumb.
There is. I actually remember this. I remember this.
Like, I guarantee you there is. Like, this.
I think it's 2020, or if it wasn't, it was 2019. It was later in my tenure there. But it was pointing out, I can't remember if the context was creating a third party or just people doomering about the GOP generally, but it pointed out something important, which is like, however much the Republican Party disappoints you, and believe me, it disappoints us all the time. Like, the reason the Republican Party matters, and it is basically the only institution at scale in the United States that, like, definitionally is not Democrat, is not part of, like, America's left-wing, much more culturally powerful party. And so definitionally, it is kind of the only significant institution we have that you can assume automatically will be opposed to this, and like you can make it work towards that end. And like that's obviously and 100% the case. Like anyone who's telling you the GOP is the same as the Democrats, they don't ever do anything, they are a whiner and they don't care, because the reality is we have used the GOP to accomplish a huge number of things that oppose the left and are good things for this country. Like, do you want me to list the number? Like, okay, especially at your state level, your state probably has if you're in a red state, you have constitutional carry under the Second Amendment because the Republican Party passed it.
West Virginia,
if you live in a state, have vastly more restrictive abortion laws. You might have a ban on abortion because Republicans in your state passed it. You probably have school choice, charter schools. You might have the straight up education vouchers that anyone can get. And if you have it, it's because a Republican government passed it. So on and so on. At the federal level, we basically have had a shutdown of illegal immigration. Now people are realizing we basically have a shutdown of legal immigration. We've completely thrown out our old open borders refugee and asylum system. Those got thrown out. You can pick up we have the legal war being waged on DEI. President Trump retracted the old affirmative action executive order that goes back to the Johnson and Nixon days that no one else would touch. There's all of these things, and the party is consistently getting better on these things. I don't think there's a single issue within the Republican Party where you could compare it to where they were in 2012 and say that the party is worse on this issue I care about now than it was in 2012. And
the Trump administration has made inroads on gun rights, but you're exactly right talking about the abortion issue. The fact that again, there's a reason that Roe v. Wade is no longer the law of the land. So there's tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of children that are going to live because the right exists, and the right is absolutely diametrically opposed to the left. The other big thing here, I was just looking at this the other day, folks. Opioid deaths, because the border is closed, are down 40,000 Americans per year. Just the border closure itself, and I say this all the time, the border closure itself has at least held off the destruction of this country, and it is such a big thing. Before President Trump got into office, Blake, I was saying, you know what, if he doesn't do anything but close the border, for God's sakes, I'm happy with 4 years of whatever else he brings, and he's brought a lot more to the table than that.
Yeah, and you can see it. People are saying nothing's happening, but or people will be dismissive because some of their deportation numbers are clearly dependent on saying people self-deport, and people are poo-pooing that. But you can see the self-deportations because, for example, country in city after city and state after state, we had endless, extremely rapid growth in kids in classrooms who were Hispanic origin. It was going up really quickly in a way that was clearly indicative of these are a lot of illegal immigrants who are putting their kids to the school. And suddenly, overnight, those numbers are down, in some places dramatically. And what's the cause of that? The cause of that is illegal immigrant families are pulling their kids out and leaving the country.
Yeah.
And those usually aren't because they had to get rounded up and deported, because even this admin really is putting most of their focus on finding criminals, which turns out there's infinity of those. But they're making it harder to work here. An illegal immigrant is looking at this and going it's not working out right now. Let's ride out this storm in Honduras or wherever we came from. And they're getting out. And I think those news stories where they are sending random Cubans to the Central African Republic, however you feel about that, I think that's the sort of thing that's going to put a giant exclamation point above the head of a lot of people who are here illegally and going, okay, I should get out of here before I'm randomly stuck in the Central African Republic.
Yeah, and Trump just got rid of the temporary protection orders on I don't know how many foreigners. Folks, there's a lot happening in this country, a lot of good things. And I just want to go back real quick to Lace is saying right here on YouTube. She said, I've noticed that libertarians are starting to mold to fit more socialist communists, modern Dems are more liberals leaning right, is more center and so forth. This is true. And the reason that libertarians are kind of leaning more left is because right now, look, one of the central things around being a libertarian, and the major part that I disagree with them, is on the foreign policy issue, right? When it comes to their domestic policies, when we prioritize individual liberty, I'm all about it. But when we get to this idea that extreme isolationism is really good for America, it's the worst thing that could happen to America. Folks, we have to protect our interests overseas. The things that's the way that we project power, and that's how we prevent wars. That's how we prevent all kinds of crazy things happening on just through deterrence alone. You can't prove a negative. We can't prove how much projecting our military might, and by the way, projecting our financial power as well. That's huge. That's why all of these people That's why Russia's pushing a lot of this stuff. That's why Candace Owens got an invite to the St. Petersburg International Economic Forum. It's to ultimately push BRICS, which will completely undermine America's ability to project financial power and economic power. Like that is as great or more powerful when it comes to protecting the United States and our interests than even our military. And people don't understand that. And folks, if BRICS gets put into place and we replace the US dollar as the world currency, folks, you talk about economic disaster here in the United States. Wait till we have $50 a gallon for gas. Wait till we have such economic collapse that you don't even understand what's happening. Wait until we have our enemies that we no longer have any sort of economic leverage against them. Like, you're just pulling back the bulwark that is holding back the axis of evil. And these people are unwitting idiots that are helping this happen or attempting to. But yeah, this whole thing with Tucker Carlson talking about the third party, the only reason that you start a third party is so that you can sabotage the right. That's it. And that's what all this is, folks. This is the globalist agenda repackaged for the right. Folks, if anybody that wants to talk, throw up a hand. And those of you that with the mic, you can jump in at any time. Feel free. Feel free. Jim Burns Jr. says, actually, Gary, BRICS is guaranteed to fail for every nation. It's a horrifically stupid idea for many angles. And it won't stop them from trying. And if it does gain momentum, more nations will jump onto it. So don't underestimate the left. And that was one of the things that we talked about in the last podcast, that between 7 and 9 is, could you imagine Russia in 1940 saying, hey, here's what we're going to do. We're going to start sending people to the United States to subvert their education. We're going to infiltrate the economy, the government, their education system. And by 2026, we're going to have a democratic socialist that are pushing all our ideas in 2026. They were like, there's no way that would pass. But yet they had the will and they did it. And it's been more successful than I think anybody could have ever imagined. All right. Ramses had facts, Gary. It's the only thing I put out. Just cold, hard facts. Blake, I got to ask you, were you sharpening a pencil earlier?
No, I was grinding. I was prepping a steak. I'm going to grill a steak, so I was putting salt on it.
Gotcha. Gotcha. It sounded like you were sharpening a pencil by hand. Nanak, did you? Oh, let me see. Let me get Nanak up here. Make sure she has a mic. Nanak, you're connecting. Send it, Nanak.
Hey guys, how are you?
I'm doing great.
Good, good. I want to ask Blake a question.
Sure.
For those of us that are scattered around the nation and not really familiar with TPUSA's training and whatnot, without being on your payroll, what can we do? Is there some training that we can take, that we can go be ballot chasers in our own counties and in our own state?
Well, so I guess casually, nothing stops you from being a ballot chaser. Charlie did love to talk about this, which is just like you, if you're in a church, do you talk to the people in your church about the election that's coming up? Do you find out how they're feeling? Because he said he loved to talk about people that you assume are with it and totally get what to do. They'll surprise you because they're actually they've never voted. And so you should ask your friends hey, have you voted yet? Did you vote in the last election? And especially if you're, for example, if you're in a evangelical Christian community, they should be on your side in terms of values, but you'll be caught off guard by how many of them don't vote. And I'd say that's similar in other communities. So obviously
right.
Social circles where people are going to be on the left, but if you're active in a church community or maybe something that's pretty right-wing coded otherwise, if you're into MMA or something, a lot of those guys might be naturally right-leaning or at least might be able to listen to your arguments. So you can be a ballot chaser in your own life in that casual way.
Right. I have tried that. I've had conversations with people in my church, and I recently left a church that I was with for 10 years for various reasons. But my frustration was a lot of them did not want to discuss politics, and that really frustrated me to no end.
Yeah, I mean, that's going to be a common case. And like, sometimes it can be, sometimes they just find politics annoying. Sometimes, everyone has their own reasons. It's just going to be hard sometimes. Like some people are really good at being like great conversations about this stuff. I think Charlie was one of them. And sometimes it's not. It just all depends on your thing. But that's what you can do in your own life. Doing the full turning point action version, I mean, that's going to be hard to do on your own. Like, it is resource intensive. We have software to identify who these people are. So like, that's what our Chase 100 program is. It's literally like, we're trying to identify 100 specific people so that we can dispatch one of our people to go and win them over. And like, that's a pretty, that's a pretty involved process, of course.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and then
Okay,
look, I do know you can contact your local RNC and just see what you can do. It's like, hey,
Okay.
I'd love to be a volunteer and get after it. And I think I
Yeah.
guarantee you, there's Facebook groups and things like that. That's one of the things that I definitely want to start kind of reprioritizing our channel and moving toward those efforts. I think we talked to Scott Pressler recently. We'll have him on. Of course, I'm always open to working. I mean, I already get paid by TPUSA, just joking, everybody. But, that is the claim. Happy to work with TPUSA on different things that we could possibly do or get some information out there to people. Look, the priority here is to not only win the election, but win future elections so that we can not only preserve our country, but continue to make headway into some of the losses we've had over this country, whether we're talking about gun rights, whether we're talking about property rights. All of these things are so important. Our borders, our elections, all of these things that the Democrats are diametrically opposed. They want to tax you more. They want more people on the dole. They want more immigrants into our country, mainly illegal immigrants. They want to make sure that our elections aren't secure. They want to pack the Supreme Court. They want to take our guns from us. Like, we have some real problems in this country. And for these people to sit there and say that there's no difference between the left and the right, just know that they're part of the left. Or they've fallen for the dumbest propaganda from the left ever. You are retarded.
Yeah. I really feel like the soul of this country is in trouble. And if we don't make the effort and don't start getting involved in politics, we're in a mess.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. Folks, if you haven't done this already, make sure you do me a favor and go ahead and share the space. And we'll see where the conversation goes from there. But we appreciate your support. So share the space. If you were watching on YouTube, X, and Rumble, and on Facebook as well, make sure that you share and you like and subscribe and all those good things. And we'd love for you to join in the conversation. I'm trying to throw comments up here from the YouTube side of things, or the video social media side of things, and get you guys in on the conversation as well. This is a conversation I would like to discuss, and I'd like to hear everybody's thoughts on this. And I don't think there's a wrong. I mean, I may disagree with you, but Lace here says the flock cameras are already causing major problems within law enforcement. Many have been caught stalking, harassing, abusing them. If they're implemented and remain, it'll evolve into something more. Look, I'm not a fan of the flock cameras. And I think there are obviously legitimate and rational arguments for both sides of this. The flock cameras are a good idea in theory, and in some ways, just like gun control, right? Like, if we just got rid of all guns, there'd be no gun violence. It never works in reality. And the problem is anything that you put into place, like flock cameras, I mean, that is a tyrannical government's dream. That is the cream of the pie, as somebody would say, Candace would say. That is exactly what they would want. And that is something that can be massively abused at scale with very little control. And I mean, when you're using AI, you could have a couple of people basically in charge of that thing. And that is not something I want to see. I do care. But like the idea that there's a couple of rogue law enforcement operatives out there abusing these things, that's like the least of our problems. And anytime that you consider these types of issues, just like gun control, I may feel safe, and this may make sense to me now, but if we had a tyrannical government, not now, not 10 years from now, 20 years, 50 years from now, that we do have to ultimately take up arms against or oppose in different ways. Like, is that a tool that you want them to have to use against the American people? And I don't. And all we got to do is, like, would you have wanted, for those of you that are proponents of this, because you like the idea of safety and security, would you have wanted the Biden administration to have control of flock cameras? The next thing you know, they can start targeting anyone and everybody that has a Trump poster in their yard or whatever else. And I know that sounds extreme, but folks, that's not that extreme. Like, again, imagine the worst case scenario. Is that something that you want the government to have control of? Another issue that I think is really important is I think there needs to be a big push to get UAS or drones protected by the Second Amendment. And I mean that. I mean, that is the small arms of the future for the American people as well. So, I'd like to hear anyone's thoughts, whether you oppose it or especially if you oppose either one of those, but especially on the flock cameras. Or if you agree, and there were some points that I didn't cover. Love to hear from you on that.
I agree about the flock cameras, and I have never thought about the drone situation, but you make a great point, and I'm a 2A absolutist, so I definitely don't disagree. I just haven't thought about it.
You better not disagree. This is a high IQ outfit. We don't allow people.
But I really haven't thought about the drone thing as far as being protected by 2A. I've never thought about that. Are there other people that have never thought about this, or is it only me?
It's only you. I also want to let you know, you may not know this at the time right now, but I'm about to drop some knowledge on you. Thunder is actually the sound of lightning. Thunder.
Are you serious?
No way, dude.
Yes.
No idea.
No, look, SK, I don't think a lot of people have thought about that. And when we look at what's going on in Ukraine, we have a severely inferior force being able to thwart a superior force. And they're doing it through drones. And of course, if it comes down to it, I think the American people are extremely industrious. And, if suddenly the government was tyrannical, or forget about the tyrannical government. The other reason that the Second Amendment exists is so that we can oppose a military force that if they were ever to invade the United States. That's that, and being able to oppose the U.S. government if they become tyrannical. That's the reason the Second Amendment exists. So that is even a stronger argument for having drones being protected by the Second Amendment. I think we should have access to these. I think we should have the right to those. We look at the different, and we always think about the now. Like, let's imagine China in 50 years from now, if they were to invade the United States. You think they would invade us with a military human force? Have you seen the freaking crazy dogs and humanoids that they're making right now? They have some humanoid Olympics going on right now. Imagine 50,000 of those sons of guns coming across, walking across. This is also the reason why we as Americans should have access to full auto firearms, belt feds, freaking tanks. I don't need permission.
Bring on the nukes. Why are we not allowed to have nukes again? I mean, asking for a friend.
No, so Gary, how do you put that genie back in the Bible?
That's a good question. I heard another one today. Price gauging.
I think you meant bottle.
No. That was a Candace-ism.
Brian.
That's a Candace-ism. Put it back in the Bible.
Okay.
She really said that?
She did. Yes.
It's all in the cream of the pie, dude. It's all in the cream of the pie.
Oh my God.
And price gauging. And she said it multiple times. It wasn't we all say dumb things and we slip up, right? But when you use the same incorrect word or incorrect, pronunciation of said word, how do you go through 30 plus years of life and never hear the word macabre said correctly and you think it's macabre? I don't know how that happens, but I digress. Back to Second Amendment and drones and invading.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yeah,
I'm
go
sorry.
ahead.
I don't mean to interrupt.
No, that's okay.
When you say 2FA, are you talking about two-factor authentication?
No, I said 2A, the Second Amendment.
Okay.
The right to keep and bear arms.
I thought I heard somebody say 2FA.
Yeah, no.
Never mind.
No, two-factor authentication is not covered by the Constitution. Although maybe we need an amendment to cover that. I don't know.
Well, that's for our protection.
What's that?
That's an IT thing.
Yes,
Two-factor
yes.
authentication.
No,
Yeah.
I'm tracking. I'm going back to the 1700s. Second Amendment. No big deal.
Okay.
Is there anybody out there that actually supports flock cameras? And by the way, I think like these speed trap cameras, like, look, and this is not a constitutional issue. I mean, obviously, you don't have protections of privacy in public spaces. I get this. So this is not a constitutional issue, but I do think this is something that needs to be taken up. We need to have a discussion about it. It needs to be addressed legislatively. I don't like the idea of.
And Gary,
it could be a constitutional issue. I think it could be because if they're storing your data and then they are then using that, didn't we just see someone like get pulled over and have guns drawn on them and all sorts of things because the wrong information was pulled from like flock cameras? They made a mistake and they like pulled over the wrong people.
But how is that a constitutional issue? Because that information is being collected publicly. That is information, for instance, your license. And I'm not just talking about, most of the flock cameras right now are license plate readers, but there's obviously some AI video recording capabilities of those things as well. Like, I don't see how this is a constitutional issue.
Well, I think the privacy issue as far as how they're storing it and how they're using it. Like, if you don't consent, are they selling your information? How is it
what information?
protected? And like the fact that your tag was scanned in this city, in this city, in this city, in this city as you were going on your road trip with your family.
You have no expectation of privacy traveling public roads. I mean, that's the problem, and that's well established in law.
But not even how they store it,
Nope.
or like if they sell it, if the company sells it for a profit.
Nope, it's public
and
information.
You don't consent.
Like you might get in some. I don't know about that part of it. I don't know that they are necessarily selling it, but
well, I don't know.
They're already doing that, SK.
I'm just asking questions, Gary, but I'm legitimately asking questions.
I don't like it. I don't like these questions.
They're creating heat maps. I just saw tonight that one county or whatever just ended their contract because the company told them they were not creating heat maps, and one of the people in the county, one of the officers or something, went on and saw that they were creating heat maps of where people were driving, like the same person, so they ended their contract with them.
So, I mean, why would they need flock cameras to do that when they can do that with the device that's most of you are talking on right now? Because we already gave up all that information.
I mean, I think like SK said, that people are having issues because they don't know what they're doing with the data. They don't know where it's being stored. And also police officers have been caught stalking like former partners and stuff.
Yeah.
So nobody knows exactly what's being done with the data.
There's a lot of these, a lot of the states and localities, they outsource who actually runs like the cameras and the tolls. So that the company keeps that data. That's their data, not the state's data. So they can sell it, and they do sell it to data brokers.
And so, what happens when you go to? I don't even know if this is the case now. It may or may not be. But like when you go get a driver's license and you have to sign, permission for these just to get a driver's license, because if they're not doing that now, you almost guarantee that they will. I mean, you basically consent, even though you can sort of not consent to facial identification and biometrics when you board a plane. So
yeah, I mean, there's a lawyer in Virginia that's fighting a lot of this. He might be a good guest to have on at some point, Gary.
Yeah,
and because I'll send you his stuff. He's on X as well. But like all the traffic cameras and the speeding tickets, like that's his big thing. He'll actually, a while back, he said he would represent anybody for free to fight that because he was trying to get it raised to the Virginia Supreme Court.
Yeah.
I know from experience too, like I told you the other day, Gary, that neither side wants flock cameras, but it's for different reasons.
Sure.
people who are more conservative don't want them because they don't want to be surveilled. But the other side doesn't want them because they want illegals to not get caught.
Yeah, and they like crime. I think we should put them in all Democrat cities for sure, just so I can keep an eye on them. And we also need flock cameras inside government buildings. 100%.
I thought for sure the left would be in favor of flock cameras because of all that authoritarianism and communism that they want everyone to live under. I would think they would want a constant surveillance state.
That's
Also, this is another reason why everyone needs to make sure that we don't ever get rid of cash. Because if everything is digital, everyone knows everything you're doing.
Well, don't worry. Pretty soon you'll have to get a mark on your right hand or your forehead before you can sell or trade. Get ready for that. But that is where this is going.
Call me
folks.
Amish.
Yeah.
Call me
I
Amish.
I thought the same thing about the flock cameras, and I found out the hard way because I was in a Facebook group with people who are trying to get rid of them in my county, and somebody was talking about hating ICE in there. So I made a comment back and said, I like ICE, and they booted me from the group.
Yeah, look,
So
I don't doubt. I guarantee you get up into the upper echelons of the DNC and they love this idea. They always love different ways to have centralized control. I don't doubt that your everyday Democrat doesn't like the idea of it because a lot of them don't like any sort of law enforcement. So that's no surprise to me. For those of you that there's a bunch of people requesting co-hosts. Once people talk, start switching people out for people that have requested to speak. Timmy, go ahead since you got your hand up. And
Hey, Paramount. So I was following the flock psyop a little bit, and there's a couple of derivatives to it. One, they make it seem like it's a national argument and it's Big Brother federal when it's really the local municipalities. And yes, they actually do like them. They do like them as totalitarians. They're just pretending like it's Trump and Washington, D.C. that's forcing them on us. Other one, I was wondering if I could ask Blake a question. I'm not trying to put him on the spot with the question either, so you could feel free to tell me it's a question, not the answer. The question was just, was there any funny business whatsoever with the books, not talking about like the actual fraud that people are trying to sensationalize? Was there any problems or house cleaning, like the audit story around Charlie requesting it at the beginning? Was it, and was it just a basic audit?
We've described this very honestly, like what went on here. And, it's kind of that thing where people go, we're just asking questions. And then they get an answer to the question and they're like, well, we don't like that answer. So we're going to.
I'm not trying to do that to you. Feel free to say that you don't even want to talk it.
But like, that's why people keep bringing it up, because the boring answer to this is Charlie was like an enthusiast for Elon Musk and Doge. Like he loved the concept of it. He loved just like.
So he was basically like, that's it. Just like basically like GE Capital even.
Well,
the
part that gets left out of Doge is the efficiency part of this. I feel like I remember Charlie Kirk talking about that specifically on the, like, who doesn't want government or their business or whatever else to run more efficiently? So, anyways, like that.
Yeah. And so it's like, I think he just kind of liked the idea of like a meme department at Turning Point. Like, how could we make like Turning Point more efficient or, run a tighter ship or all of that. And I think it was probably mostly an excuse to have like t-shirts that we could wear. And like, that is the boring explanation of it. And I guess people don't like the boring explanation. So.
No, you have to
settles it for me. That's fine.
What you have to do, Blake, is admit that Charlie thought that his entire company was corrupt and was there was all this scandal going on. They didn't know where money was going, which there is no evidence of those things, and it's just like people just want to create controversy where none exists. And I know you guys more than anyone has had about enough of it, but it is frustrating to watch it all kind of go down. I just shared up in the Jumbotron there, and I am sharing on YouTube as well. And I just say YouTube as a general term. We're obviously streaming to a couple different locations, but here it is. Bethany O'Leary, the Flock CEO Garrett Langley just went on Fox and said Americans need to compromise on their privacy. My answer to that is no. And look, I do think this is something that needs to be addressed sooner than later. And with that, we had a comment right here on YouTube as well from Chalky Grizz. I don't support flock cameras, but I'm also not losing my mind over it. I'm pushing my local government to get rid of them. But since they've been so long in the tooth, it's not easy to push. As in, they've been kind of inculcated already into our society to a point where we don't even feel like we need to push back on it. And that's how these things are done. That's how America has been transformed from a free nation to a much more socialist controlled country. And that's through incrementalism, from a godly country to a godless country through incrementalism. And I think we need to start pushing back now more than ever. Kimberly, go ahead.
Thanks, Gary. So I want to go back to when you were talking about elections, and also when you were talking about elections on the podcast earlier. So first of all, I have to disagree with you about the election fraud being hard to find and prove. I'm just going to say again, uniteforfreedom.com. We have tons of peer-reviewed data. We are in 35 states. We have gone through boards of elections data and analyzed it with our team of almost 100 very experienced data members. We have a COO that has been in IT and has worked for banks, and he used to work for the NSA. He knows, or when he saw us, or when he saw that they were doing a color revolution in America, he perked up and got involved to fix our elections. So we have proven that there's fraud. Go look at the numbers. We didn't create the numbers. We just analyzed the boards of elections numbers. And we have to fix our elections. And at this point, we really feel like we're going to need a national emergency, but we are doing all we can. We need more people to help. We need donations, of course. And there was something else I was going to say, but I lost it. But it's unite4freedom.com. All the data is there. Oh, I was going to say also about Scott Pressler. Early voting helps them know how much they have to cheat. And if you want to understand it, go watch the documentary, Let My People Go.movie. It's a free documentary by Dr. David Clements. And the stuff that I say, I'm no expert, data expert, or anything. I just have been involved for more than 5 years. And so all of this information comes from experts in the field, including David. And go watch that documentary. You'll understand how everything works together, how they've used the cell phone networks to not only change votes, but they alter votes everywhere to a crazy extent, even down to the school board levels. And that movie that documentary will also show you how early voting helps them cheat. And when people like Scott Pressler come in and say that they've flipped a state, he's lying, because just because you get more people to register Republican does not mean you flip the state. Until those people vote Republican, the state is not flipped. So that's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
I agree with that. Real quick, before we have some other folks jump in here, I just want to hit a couple super chats. Jesus Freak 2000 says we blocked Roombas because of the risk of hacking from China, including DJI drones as well. And I think there's some ulterior motives to some of those things, but I agree. We do need to keep China on the forefront of threat analysis for sure. Smash 710 says pretty big win with suppressors, SBS, short barrel shotguns, SBR, short barrel rifles, with the lawsuit won by Silencer Shop and GOA. 28 states don't require a Form 4, but can the ATF shut that down? Yeah, Smash. So I talked about this the other night. So first and foremost, if you want to support us, you can do so by our business, ParamountTactical.com. We have lots of suppressors in stock, and we are a Class 3 dealer. We are currently not allowing people to purchase suppressors from us right now, just using a 4473 or your standard can transfer form. And the reason being is because we've contacted the ATF and we're like, hey, how do we do this? So it's hard to explain for most people, but we have a special operation tax book, and as being a class 3, all of your SOT items, suppressors, short-barreled rifles, all these things that are currently considered class 3 items, they go on your books. And the only way that you can get those off those books from the ATF is to do a Form 4, right? So you have to go through that process. Now, what Silencer Shop and some of these big companies are doing, they're taking a lot of risk, and I applaud them, but they also have a lot of lawyers that are ready to defend them. And Gary can't afford hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars of potential lawyers if and when the ATF comes after me. The other thing that I'm really concerned about is if the Democrats win elections, right? There's a real potential that those people that are doing this right now, because of an infraction on the books right now, even though that it's sort of in this weird legal limbo, like they could still take your class 3 license, they could take your FFL, and they could potentially retroactively prosecute you for these things. So for me, while we would be selling suppressors through the roof right now, doing that, to me, it's not worth the risk. And there's this is a big complaint amongst a lot of other smaller FFLs. And again, I applaud Silencer Shop and some of these other companies that are doing this, but it is a big risk, and I'm glad they're taking it. But man, and potentially, I don't know that there's anything in there that they might be able to potentially come after the customer for. But again, what happens when there's a Democrat in office and a Democrat appointee is running the ATF? Like, those are things that you really do have to consider. So until the ATF comes up with some sort of, there's not even a mechanism to get these class 3 items off of our books. And man, if suddenly I have a suppressor that I've sold and it's still on my books, I've at least broken the rules at a minimum. And that could potentially be a felony. I don't know how far that goes. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not a doctor. I just play one on YouTube. But the great question, Smash. I don't know who is next. Whoever has a hand up, start talking. One of you.
Is it okay if I go?
Sure.
Or is there someone before?
Nope, go ahead. I don't even know who
Okay,
this is.
hey.
Yep.
It's AB Sampson. How are you?
What's
How
up,
are
buddy?
you, Gary?
Thanks for joining the space.
My pleasure, man. Thanks for hosting the space. It's I'm really pleased that you have Blake here, in a good way. So I guess in terms of sending solidarity to him, while for years, I followed Turning Point, and I've had mixed opinions as a staunch conservative about certain things here and there. What I don't have any ambiguity about is the craziness that they've been subjected to. That's clear. So I'm just actually, right before I was on your space, on your YouTube stream as well, I'm a survivor of diligent denizen space for not even close to the first time. So ask me anything. I managed to maintain most of my sanity, but just wanted to send obviously sincere solidarity to obviously Erica, but Blake's here and the team holding it down at TPUSA, because no matter whatever quibbling differences in terms of this, that, or the other thing I might have had over the years, way past tense, that there's again zero ambiguity about the fact that they're being subjected to a combination of bad faith, mental illness, delusion, or evil. There are no other options. Just like when I just heard the diligent, he turned, like, among many other things, I won't go into too many details, but among many other things, he turned one of the best features of our legal system, which is that, regarding the Tyler Robinson case, which is that if a defendant is unable to pay, if they're indigent, they're poor, they're not able to pay for their own legal representation, the government will pay for their lawyer. He turned that, which is a strength of our system, which means everyone deserves, a fair trial, into a weakness. And he kept on saying, but I can't trust him, despite their collective 120 years. I pointed out that about 120 years collective of criminal defense law experience, including murder trials, including rapes, anything under the sun. And he kept on saying, government cheese, you can't trust him. Because people kept on pointing out to him logically, they're like, hey, if this whole, Penguich thing, was a thing, why wouldn't, his defense team, which is very experienced and very knowledgeable, and they're not like low-level public defenders. These are like all private practice, prestigious lawyers, a couple California ones, a Utah one, whatever. Why wouldn't they even bring it up? Like, it's not even a matter of discovery because Tyler Robinson has access to his own bank account. So couldn't he just tell his lawyers, like, hey, check my bank account. I was in this restaurant, but whatever. And he's like, no, government cheese, implying that you can't trust the lawyer. So whatever. It's one mental illness excuse and bullshit and delusion and bad faith argument and attempt to defame after another. So a couple of other sort of miscellaneous thoughts from what I was hearing you guys talk about. On the flock thing, I don't have a strong opinion on it, I guess is the short answer. The slightly longer answer to it is I am starting to develop a reflex against any public internet hysteria. So if I have any bias, and I'm trying to keep it a small bias at this point, right? Because I have to check my own biases. But if I have any bias, it's to go against whatever the internet hysteria of the day or month is, right? So whether we're talking about in recent months, whether we're talking about the flock camera stuff, whether we're talking about the AI data center stuff, or obviously the Charlie Kirk stuff. I've already expressed my opinion on that. I'm becoming less popular.
I'm with you, AB. This came up a couple of weeks ago, and I had already kind of developed the way that I felt about this. But then I saw, I don't know, some prominent person on the woke right, Owens keeps coming to my head a lot this evening as an example. I don't know if it was him or not, but somebody there is like this knee jerk, like maybe they're a good idea. And I've also become that way.
Right.
Like I used to love conspiracies, and now I'm just like, oh my God, conspiracies. Like they're so dumb. And there's some reality to that. I think there's some, I had to do some self-reflecting. Like if you'd have talked to me 6 or 7 months ago and you'd asked me about JFK and was he killed by the CIA? Now, like, I don't even know if I ever heard that he was potentially killed by the Jews. This is like a new thing, but whatever.
Now everything's a responsibility.
But 6 months ago, I would have told you 100%. I think that JFK was killed by the CIA. And then I started really thinking about this because I'm watching this whole thing play out now. And how like these things get put into the zeitgeist that are said so often that we just accept them as fact. And looking back at what I believe with JFK, I start really thinking about like, no, that's just one of those things that's really accepted as fact. I don't know that to be true. And when you start doing a little bit of self-skepticism and self-analysis and a little bit of actual critical thinking, including your own thinking, it's like, how much do I know about this as fact and how much do I, but I am like, I'm very turned off by conspiracies now because of this whole experience, because I see how quickly they're hijacked and they're utilized.
Especially the modern ones.
Yes.
Sorry to interrupt, but especially the modern ones because, whereas before, like they were, because there was either the internet was less ubiquitous, especially before we were born, or it wasn't existing at all. A conspiracy, and first of all, anyway, there's a sort of a sidetrack. They can potentially, even ones that are false, not these ones to be emphasized, but even ones that are false can be sometimes useful. I read a great article about this. Maybe I'll, your DMs aren't open to me, but I can send you a DM. It basically said that America's always had America since its founding has had a conspiratorial side, and that it's not, and that in the past it hasn't always been bad because it said, even when the specific target or whatever the conspiracy was incorrect, it was often directionally correct, right? So it wasn't such and such person, but it is true that you should be suspicious of government overreach or government surveillance or whatever. That is a thing, that is actually a thing that's in our system.
Yes.
So they could be useful. And what the TLDR was, what's changed in recent years is that the types of conspiracies are moving from potentially directionally useful, even if not completely accurate, to something that literally kind of sends you off in the wrong direction and like totally 180 degrees in the wrong direction, and therefore will blackpill you, demoralize you, and actually make you lose hope in your own life, let alone, your ability to change it, anything like that. So that's kind of why I'm very resistant to jump on sort of sudden hysteria. It's like, why do I have to hate? I'm not saying I shouldn't, but why do I have to hate flock cameras all of a sudden? Why do I have to hate data centers, even though like all of us are, using the internet, use data centers. Why do I have to hate them again?
I'm all for data centers, to be clear. And I'm going to have Mark Meckler on pretty soon. Look, we need data centers. You know who doesn't want us to have data centers? All of our enemies. China, Russia.
Yeah, the Chinese.
There's a way to do this. And by the way, yeah, go ahead. No, sorry.
No, I was going to say, what's wrong with a little bit of, not with you, I'm saying, but in terms of the public discussion, what's wrong with like a little bit of like nuance on an issue for once? It's like, okay, I see, because I've started to get into reading about the flock cameras and the data centers, It's like, okay, I see, I've tried to read the strongest arguments in favor of it, and there are some strong arguments in favor of it. It's very good at catching fucking criminals that otherwise would not be caught. Very good,
with that.
But then also, of course, some of the arguments against it are also valid. Like it's kind of like the ability to find a piece it together and track you across the city, even if you've done nothing wrong. And there've been a couple of cases of police officers kind of abusing the system to try to track ex-boyfriends or husbands or whatever. I get it, right? But that's what regulations are for. It's like, okay, we'll keep the technology potentially, but we want to make sure that it cannot be used in this way and only with approval by the chief or whatever. Sensible regulations. Same thing with the data centers. Okay, the hyperscale, fine. There's water concerns. Make sure you won't approve a data center unless it can take care of its own water stuff. Make sure it's not built within, 1 kilometer of a large scale housing development. Whatever the reasonable concerns are, I think they can be addressed without like throwing the baby out with the bathwater, I guess.
No, I'm with you on the data centers. None of the arguments that are currently being said about flock cameras or why I disagree with them. The potential for abuse in the future by government is my biggest concern with flock cameras. They absolutely will reduce crime. They absolutely will. They will absolutely catch more bad guys. 100%.
There's a very interesting article there was a very interesting article in the Free Press, like Barry White's publication about it. I'm kind of making the case for it, and it was pretty persuasive, I have to say. Like, I wasn't like, okay, I'm definitely fully in favor of it now, but I was like, okay, I can see why people I'm a law and order kind of person. I think probably you are too. So that kind of have a civil libertarian side, because I'm I guess conservatarian ideologically, but I'm also like, I like repeat criminals being in jail for a long time. I enjoy that. I think that's good for society.
That is my strongest. That's my strongest argument against flock cameras. Is like police and law enforcement already have a lot of tools that keep the public a lot safer, but we're not utilizing them. I.e., repeat offenders. Let's keep them in prison. If you get caught doing something, a horrific, violent crime, put them in prison. Quit letting them, cashless bail. Like we can't have flock cameras and cashless bail at the same time. That doesn't make sense to me. Like let's utilize the tools that we have, and let's actually make criminals pay for the crimes they commit. And I bet we won't even need flock cameras. Go ahead, Blake. You were jumping in there.
I mean, that was actually pretty similar for me, that we have like a pretty large share of our like most socially toxic crimes are by people who clearly are just committing crimes over and over again and are not really being severely punished. I find there's one that I think of a lot where it's one of the murders they had in Fairfax County this year, where a guy just stabbed a woman to death randomly on a bus.
Yeah.
And we literally have an email where the police sent it to the prosecutor's office that says like, hey, we hear you have this guy in custody and you're planning to let him go, even though we caught him randomly stabbing someone. This guy keeps randomly stabbing people. And if you don't put him in jail for a long time, he's probably going to randomly stab someone to death. Like, they literally called the shot 4 months ahead of the murder this guy committed. This guy is a random stabber, put him in prison. And they didn't. And I think the argument for flock cameras would be stronger if this was something we're resorting to after we use the tools we already have, which the two big ones are people who are getting arrested for nuisance crimes like 15, 20 times, actually being incarcerated for a long time. Basically, maybe we should have a 10 strikes law. Sorry, everyone. And the other thing is like, a big dollar bill that's not picked up in a lot of places is just, if you are a felon who is not allowed to carry a handgun, if you're caught carrying an illegal handgun, bam, 10 years. So like, that is a very good step to lower crime significantly. And it's a very big mark, frankly, against the left that they usually don't do this. If you haven't paid attention, Baltimore has had their crime rate crash a lot. They were way higher than most of the U.S. for most of the 2010s, but they've fallen off in a big way. And it's because their rather boring, straightforward Democrat DA started saying, okay, actually, our priority is if you are caught illegally carrying a handgun, you are going to get wrecked. And when you do that, one, the most dangerous people, the people who like carrying guns around illegally that they then eventually use, they aren't carrying them, or they get caught and put away. But another thing is the ones who are slightly more rational stop carrying them because even criminals respond to incentives.
Yeah.
One last point about the flock cameras. Those are all great points, Blake. From what I understand and from what I'm reading, and from even some of the people that I know that employ them, they're generally employed or deployed, whatever, by private industry and private businesses or apartment complexes and whatever. And a lot of the times, the people that they're catching are in these blue jurisdictions, disproportionately, where either they partially defunded, or the police or cops are quitting because they hate the conditions, or they just don't go into these neighborhoods because they're bad neighborhoods, and they're kind of reticent to confront them, whatever, all this stuff. And they're catching some people that otherwise, in some cases, very serious, like murder suspects, rape suspects, who would not have been caught because they weren't caught in any other way, right? So it's not at the moment. It's not being primarily used, it's not, if at all, by governments. It's being used by these, apartment complexes, stores, factories, whatever, who then turn it over to law enforcement if they see someone doing something, criminal or suspected criminal in their neighborhood. So I don't know. It really is a bit of a tough one. I just think we should try to make it with a technology that has potentially good use, like all technologies, and bad use. Put some regulations around it, put some safeguards around it, so it's less likely to be abused. But deploy it. We do it with nuclear energy. I don't see why we can't do it with flock cameras or data centers, I guess.
AB, you're on the flock camera payroll, aren't you?
I wish, man. I wish I was on the Israeli payroll and the flock camera payroll.
Yeah, the problem, again, all the other things that we've talked about still stand. To me, the biggest problem too, one of the other problems is that I don't think flock cameras can replace law enforcement. And that is part of the push, or one of the things they want to say, because you know what flock cameras can't do? They can't respond. They can't, stop crime. And like the more that we start to rely on flock cameras, it means we're going to have a smaller police force in general. And there's there's a bigger deterrent with you have actually people patrolling areas and things like that. But no, look, like you said, there are good arguments. I think the arguments for flock cameras are quite frankly stronger than they are against them, especially currently. If we just look at them from a traditional or conventional. What I'm saying is, I don't like the idea that that is a freaking, imagine 100 times, 1,000 times more, because that's what it'll be. We'll have a flock camera on every freaking corner. That's where they're going with this. And imagine what a powerful tool that is to create a police state. And that concerns me. And I don't see the point in it. We have police already. I don't like the idea of being charged. And that's another thing too. It's like, are we going to get to a point to every time that you jaywalk in a flock camera, the next thing you know, you're getting some sort of citation in the mail, or, that's not what I want to see. I want to be able to, if I'm getting a speeding ticket, I want a cop to pull me over, and I want to be able to get off on that ticket on a technicality. But, that's what I want. Let's see. I feel like Doc was up next.
Yeah, I'll keep it as brief as possible, and I'll give it about 1 minute after I drop, and then drop the listener, so you got some room for some more speakers. But just real quick, I wanted to make first of all make an argument in favor of flock cameras.
Oh no!
I'll preface
checks in the mail, dog. Checks in the mail, brother. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, well, I'm already on the Jewish payroll. I'm a Jew, but
that's all I got. But the Jews are behind the flock camera.
Yeah. Yep, absolutely. And I want them everywhere, every public space. Okay. If it's public, it should have cameras in it, right? That includes the offices and meeting places of our public officials, and it should be 100% public access. You mentioned legislative means of addressing it earlier. Dexter's sitting in prison right now because of the New York SAFE Act. The first opponents of the SAFE Act were was the New York Police Union, because there wasn't an exemption for law enforcement. As soon as they added one, they were all in favor. And our public officials and our bureaucrats are going to be all in favor of addressing anything like this legislatively, as long as it's directed at us, the citizens, and not them. We should be able to open those flock cameras and watch our public officials doing what they do at any time. If they're not in their home doing private things, they should have no expectation of privacy either. Okay. And I'm going to push back a little bit on something Blake was saying. I am absolutely 100% against using quote unquote illegal possession of a firearm to prosecute anyone. That's why Dexter's sitting where he is. When they talk about common sense gun laws, that's what they mean. If someone is too dangerous to be in possession of a gun, why are they on the street? As Solzhenitsyn said, a communist system can be recognized by the way that it spares the criminal and criminalizes the political opponent. We've got to be really, really careful anytime we look at something that is a guaranteed individual right in this country and using it as a way to prosecute somebody for a crime. Address the crime. Somebody's murdering, raping, stealing, victimizing their fellow citizens.
Well, I mean, I won't be blunt. Like, a very large share of our murders in this country are people who are illegally carrying a gun, and they already do not have the right. Murder is very rarely the first crime that someone commits. And it's very accurately pointed out that America's murders are not committed overwhelmingly with shotguns or rifles. They're committed by handguns. And the best way
they're not committed by handguns, though. They're committed by criminals.
Yes,
Dexter. Hold on. Dexter Taylor is doing 10 years in a maximum security prison for the violent crime of not purchasing a permit from the state. Therefore, it was illegal possession of a firearm. Okay. When you start attacking that, when you start attacking the right, the inherent right that you and I have as citizens of this country, then might as well throw the whole thing out and just go ahead and get all in with the left on totalitarian state.
The reason you don't have that right anymore is that you are a felon.
New York did not kick in Dexter's door because they were short on murderers, rapists, and thieves to go after. That man had not so much as a traffic ticket prior.
I'm talking about a gun purchase offense. I'm talking about a gun carrying offense. It is very difficult to accidentally be illegally carrying a handgun. It always requires, that's a mens rea crime.
All it takes is crossing the wrong imaginary line at the wrong time.
Yeah, let me jump in here, because this is a nuanced discussion, right? And it's a separate discussion altogether, and that is, should you be afforded your gun rights after you have served time? And I am definitely in favor of that. Now, what has to go along with that is that we need more severe criminal punishment for serious crimes. And you can't have one without the other. But I do agree with the general idea that if, just like what Doc said, if you're so dangerous that you're not allowed to actually exercise your constitutional rights, then you need to still be in prison. So that's a separate nuanced discussion that I understand the general sentiment of what Blake was talking about earlier. And that is, essentially, the problem here is that we are not punishing criminals. And I agree with that. And can
I agree with both of them? Can I agree with just really quick, 3 sentences? I agree with both.
That's too much agreement.
I do agree with both of them, but I think what Blake's saying, and he could correct me if I'm misinterpreting what he's saying, is that at the very least, these gun control jurisdictions need to be intellectually, logically consistent. If it's already the law, as he said, that if you're a convicted felon, you don't get your gun rights, whether that's right or wrong. So at the very least, what they should do is, and using their logic is, if this person's an illegal gun carrier, then rightly or wrongly, they should be prosecuted for those crimes. And usually the people who are quote unquote illegal gun carriers are responsible for a lot of underlying crimes beyond that, right? Otherwise, it becomes like an anarcho tyranny where you're basically going after the legal gun owners or people who've made inadvertent mistakes, like you're talking about, Doc, and you're letting go the gangbangers and all that stuff, kind of.
Yeah, I mean, I think that is essentially it. Again, I think there's a lot of nuance, and that could be a whole space into itself, whether or not, violent crime. And that's the other problem too, is like currently, most of the time when we're talking about felonies, there's no distinction between a violent felony and, some sort of process crime or, a white collar crime. Those are very different, and they should be treated differently when it comes to getting your gun rights reinstated. Hold on one second.
I want to push back on this a little bit.
Sure,
that,
Blake, go ahead.
I think we've argued for years that law-abiding citizens should have the right to bear arms, and now it's suddenly becoming non-law abiding citizens also should have the right to bear arms. And we know categorically we can very aggressively crush a lot of the murders in this country by saying I think it's a good rule of thumb to just say sorry, even if you served your time, you committed a violent felony, lifetime forfeiture of your gun rights. I just think that is a very fair thing to do, and it would save a lot of lives if, frankly, we were a little bit rigid about that. And we were just talking there's a bunch of other ways that we can combat crime besides these flock cameras, and it feels a little bit like abrupt special pleading to me for us to now turn around and be well, actually, felons should also just be able to carry guns. I don't think they should. I think you're a felon. Sorry, you forfeited that right.
Would you maybe say violent felons instead of just felons of white collar crime, like Gary was saying?
Well, I mean, you have to be careful with that because a lot of, as we've learned from the Biden administration's efforts to free a lot of criminals, there's a lot of non-violent criminals whose non-violent crime was they copped a plea deal after being caught being a drug lord. I don't think those people should have the right to carry guns.
Well, let's look.
Your offense literally you filed bad tax documentation and were never charged or associated. But how do you catch that? We use plea deals as a way to quickly imprison people who are actually very strongly suspected or straight up known to have committed far more significant crimes.
Well, here's the underlying argument that I think is really important with this, Blake, is that's a constitutional right. And it one of the problems that we've always had on the gun rights community is that the Second Amendment is treated as a second-class constitutional right. So if we can take away your gun rights, why? I believe that all of our God-given constitutional rights are equal. So can we take away your right to freedom of speech if you were a felon? Do you no longer get access to that?
Yeah, we do. We do with gag orders. I mean, as long as you're, through due process, your rights can be taken away. In fact,
very narrow.
Slavery is still constitutional, so long as by due process, your rights are removed. Essentially, prisoners are considered slaves.
Well, sure. While you're in prison, that's a whole other deal. I'm talking about once you have served your time, you obviously get all of your rights reinstated except for your voting rights and for your gun rights. And I do think, I think there needs to be a discussion on that.
Yeah, you're right. But I mean, I think to the point of the flock cameras and everything, I was listening a little bit earlier, Gary. I mean, the point is this. Yes, there are plenty of tools at law enforcement's disposal to not even need the flock cameras. For instance, we know it's something like 0.4% of the population that commits the majority of all violent crime. And we know it typically doesn't start at murder. So if we had harsher sentences, or if we simply tracked those people within constitutional limitations, right, in the areas that those people are concentrated, we could prevent the majority of violent crimes right off the bat. But seemingly government conveniently doesn't want to use the tools that would work that are already at their disposal. Instead, we have to get into this territory, this gray area of a Fourth Amendment violation. Simply because you're in a public area doesn't mean you no longer have a Fourth Amendment right. So fine, you can be filmed, but can your tag be run? Is that a Fourth Amendment violation? Can your face be entered into a database and run against, a number of thought crimes, let's say from the Biden-Obama era? that becomes the gray area where I think many people would say that that's a Fourth Amendment violation of the flock cameras. And the last thing I want to say briefly is I don't think that public servants should have any expectation of privacy. Someone said, put the flock cameras in the public schools, put them in your legislator's office, put them in courtrooms. Absolutely. I think that everything a public servant does should be public record while they're working. So let's do that. And I guess I lied. I'll make one final point. I think everyone should get what they vote for. So if you want more taxes, I think you should get more taxes, and anyone who votes against more taxes should not have them. If you want more surveillance, I think you should get more surveillance, and everyone who voted against it should, have their constitutional rights intact.
Yeah.
So you actually think public servants work?
Sorry? Yeah, sometimes. I mean, sometimes they work hard at stealing. I don't know.
100%. All right. There's a bunch of other people that had their hands up. And we'll get you back in there too, Viva. I always love having you on there. Henrietta, I only see part of the name. Henrietta the Great. Not just any standard Henrietta. It is the great one. We got the great one, folks.
Oh boy.
My expectations are high, Henrietta. My expectations are high.
Hi, Jim. Hi, Obscure. Hi, Blake. I watch you all the time on Rap.
Outside
How
your
are
window.
you? Yeah, I'm right. I'm a state and precinct committee woman here in Arizona, and I'm in a very strong, supportive TPA and TPUSA area. So I'm very, very fortunate and very, very blessed. And we're still sad and miss Charlie Kirk very much. And we think it's abhorrent what we're witnessing, the insanity and the hurt and the horrific conspiracy theories and everything that's going on. I mean, who would have thought any of that nonsense? I mean, that they'd be exploited by somebody that they were affiliated with at one point, but had to dump her. But anyway, and it's a good thing they did. But I obviously, it's obvious what side I'm on there. And I am against the cameras, and I'll tell you why. Because the government's going to abuse it. That's why. Look what they did with COVID. You know, they can't wait to infringe upon our rights, and this will let them take them away even more. Oh, so-and-so stepped outside of their house. Maybe they'll deploy a robot or something to knock them in the head or something and order them back in. Who knows what their plans are? They know they're building armies, of these robots and stuff. So I know I'm not trying to sound cuckoo, but it really is realistic. So I'm against it. Now, when they made the Constitution, right, our freedoms were so valuable that at the time they did weigh out the risks of our freedoms, but it was so valuable and so important that at the inception of our country, that they were willing, right, to have some risk because that's how important our freedoms are. So yes, our freedoms are leading to harm because the government doesn't enforce the laws and because the government wants to let Antifa burn down and others burn down buildings and things like that. And then selectively, right, obey laws or enforce them. So who are they going to force them against? Us, the law-abiding people that love the country. And, they're going to come for us. Maybe we'll be in Fry's or something shopping. So no, I don't trust them with that kind of power at all.
Well, let me interrupt you
and I do agree with Blake.
Hold on, let me interrupt you, and I'm going to reinforce what you're saying. Can everybody imagine how like flock cameras would have been utilized? They were more prevalent during COVID under the Biden administration. Like anytime that people stepped out of their house, or you were caught not wearing a mask, or anything like that is what we're talking about. And there's a reason that my podcast is called Dangerous Liberty, because safety at the expense of liberty is slavery. And I agree with everything you say. And so, amen. You did not disappoint. You are the great Henrietta.
Oh, Lord. And then, So that is why I'm against it. I want children to be safe. I don't ever want children to be harmed. And they do need very swift intervention. I agree with you and with Blake that law enforcement does have the tools to swiftly respond. And our laws, unfortunately, are selectively enforced, and how they proceed and everything else. So it's very complicated, although it shouldn't be. Let's see. So what else was I going to say? I think that's really it. That was it.
Well, that was
really.
great.
But I'm lucky. I'm very blessed. I'm a California refugee. And I just want to say I'm a conservative from California. I survived it and got out of there in one piece. And then I moved to heaven on earth over here where I am. And Jake Hoffman is my state senator here. And listen, turning point. Anybody that has a question, a concern, forget it. Could you imagine if New York or California had a turning point? Had a Charlie Kirk, had an army of wonderful youth that's not falling through the cracks or being in the claws of the left, and that all these youth are being saved. Hold on a sec. And they're all being saved. Could you imagine how much better and more healthy our country would be? So it's a dream come true to have access to Turning Point and all of the healing and the wonder. I go to Dream City to their events. I went to all the Trump rallies, and I have all my name tags hanging up in a special spot from Turning Point. I'm getting a little emotional right now, but I think they're absolutely wonderful, and I love them so much. And they do make everything. They make where we live better. And they're just wonderful. And they have the most wonderful people that take part in the good works that they're doing. So they're not doing anything bad. They don't have any secret agendas. They're just really caring, nice people. And so that's all I wanted to say. And I'm sorry that I'm against the cameras, because we know that it's not going to be used as they're telling us,
Yep.
right?
Don't be sorry for what you believe. Don't be sorry for what you believe. Okay.
So anyway, thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you. Thank you. Great points. Right Wing Gun Nut, I missed this one earlier. We got a super chat that says Chinese robot killer dogs. This will be my justification to get that high car upgrade, which is a hyper velocity improved carbine assault rifle or something along those lines. That's what he's talking about. But anyways, no, I agree. I mean, let me tell you something. Imagine where these robots are going to be in 50 years. And that's just like she kind of brought up. I agree with that. Like, it's going to be like, okay, we need this AI police force and all these flock cameras. And then, Eddie 209 is going to respond to when you get caught screwing up. That's not what I want in this world, to say the least. Mid-Gray, you're up, bud. Let's get it. Some Mid-Gray in the house.
What's up, brother?
What's up, man? How are you?
Pretty good. Yeah, I've got a couple things I wanted to hit on, one of which actually dealt with the title of your topic, so I'll save that for when we get back on that. I know we're kind of... No,
you're fine. Whatever you want to do.
Yeah, but as far as since we're kind of talking about the tech overlords, I am Part 107 certified, so I have just a little bit of experience I can share here with that. But I think most people know that DJI and Autel, the Chinese companies, have been restricted heavily by the government. And that's kind of, led the way for American companies like Anduril or Skydio to kind of step in and benefit. Speaking of, I would love for you to get Palmer Luckey on your show sometime. I
would love to have Palmer Luckey. Anybody that knows Palmer Luckey, I would love to have him on the show.
Yeah, that would be awesome. But anyway, so there's a lot of private capital that's flowing in that gap, but these are mainly military level capital. It really is not affecting the mass consumer market. So, I realize that it's going to take a little time for new companies to pop up, but it is something I really want to see in terms of the mass consumer drone market, because we really don't have anything in the United States to compete with a company like DJI, for instance. And, in terms of what you were saying about the Second Amendment issue, I think that's, very interesting thought, because, if you think about, the future and how governments are going to utilize technology, and it ties into all this, whether it's flock cameras or data centers or the drone market. We have to be competitive as a country. Charlie Kirk was for this American dominance, for data centers, for all this stuff, So I think it's okay. I appreciated what AB said earlier. Like, this is a nuanced issue, and we can like some things about it and not like other things about it. That's okay. And then as far as like the actual the laws as they sit now, I'd say they're pretty restrictive. We do need some type of regulation, but airspace safety is a really big deal. So we can't just have a million drones flying through the air. That is a flight risk to commercial aircraft, everything else. So but it is pretty restrictive. They've got remote ID broadcasts, so it's like every one of these drones is registered now. It's tracked remotely. And you can't fly it over people. You got to have a visual line of sight, all these things. And but and I know it's like a federal felony now to like shoot down a drone. But anyway, yeah, I think that there's it's an issue that I'm watching closely, and it definitely has some room for improvement.
Yeah, no, I think it's important. They're an important asset to our individual liberties and securities in the future as well. And like you said, I understand the issues as far as flight risk and things like that, but that can be mitigated as well. I think there's ways around there.
Yeah, for sure. And I think we need, surveillance alone is just like, for our individual liberties. We're not necessarily talking about weapons aircrafts here. It's like, but just for surveillance. If you have a huge piece of property, it's like everybody I know that has a large chunk of land has a drone.
Yeah. Well, and at a minimum, I think if you attach a weapon to a drone, that is automatically covered by the Second Amendment. There you go. Problem solved.
Should be.
Yeah,
I'll come back later on the on some other stuff.
Yeah, no worries. Agree. SK, go ahead, and then Key, and then Alice. And folks, I'm telling you right now, I was planning on shutting this down at midnight. I'm going to go to 12:30, so try to keep it short. And we got a few other folks that are in the request queue that I want to get them up. Make sure that everybody gets in.
Yeah, I just thought this would be a good discussion for the panel when I was debating every day of my life for almost 2 years. One of the things that would come up was, the voter ID issue, and the left was always arguing against voter ID, and they would always say that requiring people to have a photo ID in order to be able to exercise their right to vote was disenfranchising the voters. And the fastest way you can turn a leftist that is against voter ID into a staunch supporter of the Second Amendment is by asking them, well, how do you feel about the fact that your Second Amendment right is a God-given right to be able to protect yourself, especially women, because, they bring up women when it comes to voter ID, because, name changes, all of those things, lots of paperwork to keep up with, apparently. But when you say But when you want to exercise your Second Amendment right and you go to purchase a firearm, you have to show ID.
Yeah.
If you're a female, females are victims of violent crime at a much higher rate. Like you have to be able to show your ID and fill out a 4473 form and all of those things for a background check. There are still places that require you to have a permit or a license in which you're going to have to jump through a bunch of hoops in order to be able to carry a firearm with you to protect yourself. And protecting your life and the life of your family and protecting your property is a God-given right. And they require you to have ID to do those things. And when you bring that up, they all of a sudden start second guessing the fact that you have to show an ID to purchase a firearm. So it kind of goes the same way. Do people put voting and Second Amendment rights on the same level? Because, as we were talking about a minute ago, if somebody commits a felony and they get their rights taken away, they're getting their 2A rights taken away and their right to vote taken away. So then at that point, it becomes a privilege and not a right. So we might need to revisit this as well. On top of the fact that this is just a good conversation if anybody wanted to join in. I just thought I would bring it up because you will see leftists all of a sudden questioning why you have to show an ID to purchase.
You're exactly right. I call that the circular firing squad. One of their leftist values has to fall. They either have to drop voter ID or they have to, their opposition to it, or they have to drop opposition to the Second Amendment and requiring ID for that.
Yep.
Yeah, it's great. It's very entertaining to watch.
It is indeed. Key, you're up, buddy.
Hey, thanks for having me, Gary. Great space, great discussion. I popped in and you guys were talking about the flock stuff. So I wrote a little article. I put it down in the purple for everybody to read it. One of them is about criminal sovereignty, which nobody really ever discusses. It's not something that ever came across my mind until I started looking into flock. And I actually wrote an article a little bit about flock. Just so people can kind of see what my take is. I mean, I'm not in Fairfax, but I'm close to Fairfax. And I'm telling you right now, when the criminals are just doing whatever they want, you don't mind cameras. You don't mind them at all. If that's going to help law enforcement do the right thing, and actually capture some of these people and get them off the streets, we love it, so I don't know if it belongs everywhere necessarily. I like the idea of putting them in public spaces and stuff, because I think that, that's definitely a good use. I think everybody could agree on, is because sometimes we don't know what the heck our public officials are even up to, right? We never see them. We never hear from them. We don't know what the hell they're doing. Are they even working? Are they even going to work? Right. So I think that's a cool idea. But my take on flock mainly is like what your concern was. And that is that if we are going to have it, and this is kind of the problem with Pandora's box, right? Like once it's open, there's no containing it, right? And this is the technology works like that. It's a new power that's been unlocked, and criminals use cameras. So I don't know if people don't understand that. They use cameras. They use license plate readers. They use encrypted cell phones, satellite phones. They have counterintelligence operations, right? Like at the higher level criminal organizations. So like, law enforcement does need to keep up, I think, with the similar powers that criminal organizations are using. And I think that although a lot of the concern is about lower level crimes, I think someone did mention it earlier, and that is that most crimes, like, by the time someone murders somebody, that's usually not the first thing that they've done, right? Most of the time, you'll find out that there's very few criminals out there that would, and most of them in prison actually will talk to counselors, and they'll admit to have committed hundreds of other crimes before they got caught for the one that they're in prison for. Literally hundreds. And I just think that it's wild, we're in the circumstance now where, we have technology that we can use. And then it seems like a lot of people are afraid of it being abused. And I think that really should be the main discussion, is like, okay, how's the data going to be stored? What's the networks going to look like? Is it encrypted? Is it just going to end up where anybody can start tracking people? Right? I don't really agree with that. I did notice that some people have FOIA'd flock information, and that's literally what happens. It exposes every license plate that was collected. I don't like that. I think that's kind of stupid that you can even do that. because criminals and other people for nefarious reasons could then use that information for their own purposes. So that's kind of my take on that. And, I think that a lot of what's happening now, as technology kind of progresses, it's hard to really get people to understand, especially depending on age. So I do point it out, and I'm not bashing the founders, but I put a list down in the purple too. How many things that the founders didn't have access to, didn't even understand, didn't comprehend, didn't exist when this country was founded. And I think one of the most important ones is electricity. I'm not saying that it would have changed their minds on the way that they wrote things, but I do think that it's a good thought exercise to actually ask yourself, what would the founders do if they were here today? Like, would they actually frame everything exactly how we have it? The founders actually coordinated and conspired against the throne, right, against the king, and they had to use like horseback and carriers and messenger pigeons, and like all kinds of old school tactics and techniques. But nowadays, like when an organization, especially a criminal organization, wants to spin up an operation, they have access that's like unbelievable in comparison to what was, available back then. And I'll land with the Second Amendment part. I do think that we're losing a lot of our Second Amendment rights, and we're not even really recognizing it. One of them is I think we should have, if you're a law-abiding citizen, I think you should be able to have belt-fed weapons. I think that you should be able to have weaponized drones. I really go that far with my logic, because I feel like that when you do let the government get power and they have access to the power and they only have it, then that's the scary part, right? When government is the only
the Second
one
Amendment is the only absolute one. It's the only amendment in the entire Constitution that shall not be infringed. Keep and bear arms. And you go back to the founding, the civilians had complete 100% parity with the militaries of the world. 100%. Even privateers had warships. So yes, that is exactly what the Second Amendment means. Yeah. And that is the exact historic practice of the Second Amendment. And that is where we're going now with Brune and some of these subsequent Supreme Court decisions.
Yeah, and I think we need to start having discussions about like whether or not, like if there's a drone over my home, like what range from my house does it have to be before I can actually take it out? Now, how can I take it out? Maybe I shouldn't be shooting a firearm into the air, but should I be able to have like a drone that I can deploy to take it out? Those are the sort of things that are actually coming. Might not be too concerning this year or maybe even next year, but that is the future in this world that we live in. And I think that those discussions have to get out there, because right now, and someone mentioned it, and I learned about this recently, but you can't really do anything about any drone that's loitering over your property. You could be monitored by one, right? 100%. So it's just weird, So, but I'll land it with that. And Gary, great space. I know the topic was about something completely different, and I do think they're trying to destroy Charlie Kirk's legacy. I want to put that out there. Like, absolutely. I really do think that there's like a spirit, an evil spirit, some demons that are out there just trying to destroy this guy's legacy after all of the great that he did. And I think that one thing, and I'll say this and land it, Gary, I think that we should take time, at least coming up, it's about to be September again. We should make sure that we play all of the great clips of this guy and what he said. Charlie Kirk had so many good things to say. I did it on a space the other day, and I was just playing back to back. The gems that are out there that he left us with is great. So I think that we should all just flood the zone with it, right? So, but thanks, Gary, for having me.
No, man.
I think that's great, Key. And every opportunity I get, I tell everyone this. We definitely are experiencing spiritual warfare here. And the most important thing to pray for is discernment, because I feel like everyone needs to pray for discernment with all of the misinformation and the misleading, and people are going down the wrong path. Discernment is so important right now. It's the number one thing that everyone needs to be praying for.
Yeah, they need to pray for it, but also discernment is a skill that you need to develop, and some of these people just don't care. That they fixate on what they want to be real. I mean, it's the same. It's what drives the left. They want socialism because they like the idea of this equality of like everybody gets paid the same, everybody makes the same amount of money. There's no one that's excelling. But you're not wrong by any stretch of the means. Okay, Alice, get it.
Thanks. Yeah, so I was listening to your podcast the other day about kind of the way that campaigns are um, run and just that they've become a bit like archaic and ineffective in the thinking in terms of what's effective. And I didn't want you to like um, kind of diminish the importance of what it is that you're doing here on X, because um like the main issue with kind of the electorate now is the lack of education in and so I
It's
I
the
just
lack
feel
of interest that leads to the lack of education. But yes.
okay, yes. And so my point being that like X has become the public forum, and it's become the public square. And so I think that what you're doing in terms of like having spaces like this and garnering excitement to talk about politics, um, like that needs to be like more of that. And don't ever think that like what you're doing is like just because you're not knocking on a door, like what you're doing is essentially like re-educating an entire generation as to conservative principles, and that in my opinion can have more of a lasting impact. And like you even make the point that like, oh, what Candace does is so it it makes people excited to like be engaged. Well, what you're doing is also making people excited to be engaged, and that's really the key in my mind to educating, is to help people to get a vision for like why they should want to be educated. Yeah, because I mean, talking politics is what else am I here on a Wednesday night? Like, it's the most exciting thing to do. So, anyways, just wanted to say thank you, and thanks for the space, and have a great night.
No, thank you, Alice. No, it was very kind of you to say. Look, I agree. Look, we all need to find our own niches and figure out what we're good at. Scott Pressler is really good at getting out there and creating the ground game. I think Charlie Kirk was one of those few people out there that was really good at both. That he is a phenom that will not be replaced in our lifetime. We need several thousand people with smaller niches that are good at certain things to replace him, and obviously we'll never replace him, but be able to fill the vacuum that he left. But I appreciate that, and I do think this is really important. Stealth, you always get priority. Let's go.
No, I'm just checking in. I wanted to see what's been going on because I haven't looked at any of the thousands of group chats. So I wanted to see how you guys are doing and where are we at with the woke right and the woke left trying to dismantle things. I just behind the scenes it's a whole other world. But what is the latest? I hopefully others are doing okay. I missed you on that call, by the way, Paramount, the one from last week. So
yes, we need to
reconvene on that.
Let's reconnect tomorrow for sure.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, at this point, we had the guy who's the counterterrorism expert that came into my space today regarding the designation of these left-wing extremist organizations and accelerationist organizations. I got him to come in. I just DM'd him, and he's great. And we covered some stuff. But I'm going to send him some reports on. I can't believe I forgot his name. I'm sorry. It's been a long day. Let me get his. He just testified in front of Congress and all these different left-wing terrorist organizations. I brought up some stuff regarding the recruitment of young people, and I was asking if the administration would be willing to put out some kind of communication with cell phone companies, encouraging parents and just adults of adult kids. I mean, parents of adult kids to monitor Discord channels and radicalization and stuff like that. Not just the 09A or 764 stuff, but more And I brought up the Charlie Kirk situation as well with Tyler Robinson. So I think that there's things that we can do in the U.S. I want to put something together aggressively, that messaging goes out to build greater awareness around recruitment and radicalization through these online Discord and group chats. And I think this is something that needs to be taught both at a police level, but also at university level. There should be, consultations going on. All I hear, I had a private call with somebody the other day in terms of national security in regarding to Utah. And they said Utah is like a powder keg waiting to go off. There's so many problematic situations going on in Utah. There's like a church that is not behaving like a church anymore, let's put it this way, and has been radicalized. And a young man from there was planning a massive terrorist attack, and he's in custody. And and Idaho, you have the Idaho shooter. And I just think like kids need to be safe on campuses, and there needs to be the ability and more expansion of TPUSA on campuses for young men, and even like maybe junior colleges. I'm not really sure. I have a lot going on in my mind about this, but the first thing is education across all churches in the United States, all colleges, and even high schools about recruitment and radicalization. It has to start in middle school. So 10 years old is where they're starting them, but you can get somebody to go within 3 to 6 months to engage in activity like Tyler Robinson did, and many others, Nikita Castro, whatever it may be, to be encouraged into left-wing terrorism. And we really, I had said in July that we needed to have 250 days of sobriety in America. And what's so sad is like I wanted TPUSA to launch this. I'll speak to Andrew Colvett about it, but I wanted this in the run-up to the midterms, and we may have to do this in the run-up to 2028, but having sober men in America is the most important thing, especially on the right, especially amongst like the young men at university campuses. They're going to drink, they're going to do their thing, but in general, like sobriety, because on the right, we sadly, the left does not want to be sober off of any of these chemicals and drugs, and I don't know what else they're doing, but we need to have some young men on the right that are sober-minded, that have logic and clarity and understand their purpose and are calm and don't have impulse control disorders, but are really, really measured. And that's the way you attract people to you, right? You attract people by your behaviors and your personality and everything. And if you understand how insane what's going on with left-wing recruitment towards just domestic terrorism and everything like that, you'll understand the importance that we have to put out messaging. Schools, churches, there should be I have a PowerPoint actually. I'll give it to somebody. I'll give it to you, Gary. Put together just like learning lessons. Like these, obviously, there's levels to the PowerPoint. Some are for the FBI and others for police departments, for schools, for churches. But there has to be a way to communicate effectively the recruitment pipeline from the gaming world, the lack of sleep. Anybody, how long it takes for somebody to go be able to become like almost have a schizophrenic event from not sleeping. Alex Berenson has a phenomenal book, a 400-page book on early use of marijuana and it leading to schizophrenic disorders in the youth, and all this THC stuff and all these pens that people are using. We just need sober kids, and we have to go back to an era where we're educating about the dangers to young children's brains, specifically boys. Let's just put it this way, girls as well, but we can focus on the boys. And we cannot allow us to lose every single day young teenage boys or young boys in their 20s to online radicalization, and then to commit acts of violence that completely will change a complete generation of individuals. The other thing, I was listening to Jeremy Boring today, his interview, and he was explaining how there was a revival, under Charlie Kirk, and how Candace Owens was able to completely. I mean, it's just it's more than just like demonic. There's something else about it. It's the brilliancy of what they did, which is the most evil brilliancy, to remove that revival and to just like a succubus. That's why I called her Succubus Owens from the first day. Just be able to completely absorb all that energy and to turn it into something else. Listen, I mean, it's the greatest bit of Russian propaganda I've ever seen after an assassination at this level in our generation by somebody who's completely incompetent of a person, like just can't even read. And yet, it just happens so seamlessly. I just do not understand. I look at it and I diagnose it, like doing an autopsy on an event that occurred, by them, their ability to do what they've done and completely pull away from, I don't know, from the after effects. I don't know. It's such a simple thing that they did, but it's just so horrific they were able to do this.
Yeah, it's shocking that it's so obvious, but yet so effective.
Yes.
But I will
Yes.
say, I do want to, there is a difference. I was just listening to, I think Andrew Colbert was on, and Blake, feel free to jump in here and clear up any of this stuff. But he was just on Chicks on the Right, and he was actually talking about the gains that they made this year. And this is, and there's the perception that they're creating online. And don't get me wrong, it's having an impact. But the fact is like TPUSA outside of social media is actually growing, and they've been doing a lot. And I don't know if you have any numbers on you right now, Blake, or if you're not.
Yeah, it'd be great to know that.
I don't recall. I mean, we got a ton of, obviously, like huge amount of requests for Club America, for Turning Point USA chapters on campuses. We just launched Turning Point Communities, which is basically, hey, we could make Turning Point chapters that actually aren't school linked. You could be for professionals or families or military first responders. And like our events have such a big scope. Like we had our biggest chapter leaders summit ever, and like I think that was a big triumph. And I mean, one side effect, we are without Charlie, and Charlie was a talent without equal. But with the pick up the mic stuff is now we have a wider branding for those. So we're getting other influencers out, but also students. And I think the long-term hope is we're providing a framework, and with Charlie's example, so that young people can learn how to be conservative advocates. Like we're providing both an ideological framework and a structural framework, which is really valuable, of how can you get involved in the movement at a young age. If you're good at it, how can you start cultivating that talent? So one thing I'm very hopeful with Pick Up the Mic is we're throwing a lot of students, you might say, throwing them into the arena against these against the left or other people asking questions. And will some of them do a bad job? Probably. It's tough. Debating is hard. But I'm very hopeful that we'll also discover some natural talents who maybe never would have just been discovered otherwise. And so there's just such a scope to what we want to do. And of course, Turning Point Action is doing the get out the vote stuff. That is as ambitious as ever. And the project continues.
Paramount, the guy.
Can I ask you quickly?
I was going to say is Kyle Scheidler. He had testified before Congress and stuff. He's the director for Homeland Security and Counterterrorism at Secure Freedom. So we had him on the space, and I'm going to send him some stuff that I put together. And I did want to focus on Charlie Kirk with him because he has such a presence in terms of focusing on left wing violence and everything like that. And I just think that it needs to be discussed more, all the way up to every single agency, so that something like this never happens again to somebody like Charlie Kirk, God bless his soul. So, and the implications of that. And the most important legacy is that young people down to middle school, down to elementary school, understand the dangers of this and the implications of this. That's the best thing that
for
can
sure.
be done for the
Kyle
memory.
Scheidler is great. He's great. Blake, I wanted to ask you briefly, sort of on the point that you were just making in response to Stealth, and kudos to all the stuff that you guys are doing. Sincerely, that's awesome. I wanted to ask you, sort of in light of all the craziness we've seen since the assassination, and sort of what has been revealed about certain people. They don't have to be named. Some people can be named, other people don't need to be. But my broader question is, in this effort that you guys are making, which again I applaud you for, and the expansion and all that stuff, are you guys as an organization, is he still there? Yeah, making oh, did he drop down to listener? Shoot, that sucks. I wanted to ask him if he can hear, if they're making a concerted effort to sort of make sure that they're not being infiltrated with people that are counter to Charlie's message, so along the lines of what we've seen emerge since his tragic and untimely, I guess, assassination.
you can't predict that, AB. These people come in as sheeps in wolves clothing, and then they get subverted. It's next to impossible. It's and you'll see the shift. There's a grifter economy, obviously, in terms of war and politics, but it's impossible to secure that. I mean, TPUSA and Charlie Kirk and people like Caroline and other people that were there were always constantly like on the ground trying to make sure that the Groyper people and the people that were anti him, weren't getting in and weren't disrupting things or trying to subvert. But it's next to impossible, really to secure something completely like that, because people
were you able to hear the question, or you missed it when?
Sorry, I actually stepped out. I did not hear. I was stepping out to.
I'll ask a quicker version, and Stealth gave maybe a good answer for it as well. But I asked I'll ask a quicker version of it, which was that I prefaced it by saying I applaud you guys for the expansion and all the efforts you're doing sincerely. I wanted to ask if in the course of doing all this expansion and the various new fronts and professional, et cetera, if you guys are trying to make an effort in light of what we've learned since Charlie's assassination, about how so many people are trying to hijack his legacy and his message and his ideology, if you guys are trying to make an effort to prevent subversion by people who are wearing Charlie's sheep's clothing, so to speak, but really want to kind of promote a Candace-like message or a message that's very different than his, put it that way.
Well, we're very aware of the threat. I don't want to disclose any specific strategic stuff either, because I don't know it directly, or even if I did, I don't necessarily want to say do they have a legal strategy? I can't speak to that. I mean, we're obviously very aware that this nasty stuff exists, and it's a tough question of how to respond to it. So, initially we did try to more fully ignore the weird stuff from Candace. You think maybe she'll get bored and move on to something else. But eventually it was just clear this was not going to happen. And, she's pretty charismatic, so she can get a lot of people's attention and get people talking about stuff. And certainly on my end, I was definitely someone who argued, we need to respond to this, because not just that it's lies and these people are misrepresenting, but that people want to support us, and people will not support you in the long term if it seems like you're not willing to fight. People want to see someone who fights back, and if you don't, they start to have contempt for you after a while. And so we're definitely.
I think maybe you misunderstood my question. I guess what I'm asking is if you don't have to say how, if it's but if you, plural, the organization is making efforts to prevent Groyper types, Candace types from infiltrating your organization, and I'm sure that Nick infamously said prior to Charlie's assassination that I infiltrated you and I effed you and I got you pregnant. I'm sure you heard that. Are you guys making efforts to prevent that?
I mean, the truth is, Charlie was very aware that this, a lot of Fuentes stuff, you might say, a big obsession on Israel, on the Jews, that is a popular strand. I think there's two types. There's do we have literal spies? I think Candace tries to cultivate literal spies, and people have been fired from the organization because they were in communication and leaking stuff to her. That Aubrey Leitch chick, she was one who was we have literal text messages where she was sending stuff to Candace, very despicable behavior. I think there's been a few others who have been involved in that, and that's unfortunate. But it's a large organization with a lot of young people. Young people make bad decisions sometimes. Ideologically, that stuff does exist. I'm sure there's probably employees who like watching Fuentes videos and believe his stuff. Now, at the top of the organization, we try to chart a pretty clear ideological path, and it's the one that Charlie charted out, that he said, for example, on Israel, that you can be critical of Israel's government, you can be critical of Israeli government policy, you can criticize America's relationship or alliance with Israel and say it's bad for the US and we should change it, but we're not going to abide by Jew hate, as Charlie called it. We're not going to abide with being obsessed with this and blaming the Jews for everything and becoming this monomaniacal fixation. We will condemn that. And so if there's people in our organization who start trying to push that line in change direction, they're going to be not in alignment with Charlie's message and what Turning Point's message is. Now, obviously, we can't control what people privately believe, and it's a large organization. I mean, in the same way, Charlie, had a Christian view of like marriage and sexuality, but there's probably people at Turning Point who like have sex with their girlfriends and stuff. Like, that stuff happens too. Like in a large organization, you can't control what every single person does, but we are clear about what our values are and we aim to follow them. And I should also
Good
have to
answer.
throw in a caveat. I don't work at Turning Point, so like I talk about, I know Turning Point people. I'm around there all the time. I collaborate with them. I am not speaking as the representative of Turning Point because I actually only work for the show. But caveat.
Cool. Yep. Thanks for that, Josie. Go ahead.
Yeah. Regarding what Stout mentioned, yeah, I think it would be a great idea if we could maybe, I don't know, Stout, maybe like we could talk about it afterwards, but doing a space on it maybe, because I really think that to the point that this is my hypothesis that
Real
I
quick,
strongly
Josie,
believe.
which point were you talking about specifically?
Oh, the online radicalization and
Gotcha.
everything that's going on online. People think that it's just some conspiracy theories. No, they're theories which are just factual at this point.
100%.
If your kids have an iPad, they are at risk. It has been considered a national security threat. I believe now it's number one national security threat. I believe. I could be wrong. And also, terrorist organization. I'm not even gonna name them because those people do SWAT if they find out that you go after them. So if you want to play vigilante, I would highly recommend do not. You are not equipped to deal with these people. So I think, personally, I don't think that we hear enough about it. What I understand is that, like I said, they do SWAT a lot. They are very vicious. I wouldn't be surprised if they go after every single people in the chain of command at like a news station that puts a story out about them and viciously attack every single person there. I wouldn't be surprised they are that crazy. But I think Stealth knows people that are equipped to deal with it. I think it would be important to spread the word. Parents need to know this. It's like BX, myself, Stealth, and other people. Hello.
Sorry. Go ahead. Can you still hear me?
Yeah, we're good. We almost had Paramount. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's I'm a bit. I've dealt with a lot of stuff. Sorry, I'm kind of flustered right now because.
Sorry, Josie. I was trying something and it backfired on me. But go ahead.
You're all good. It's not something that you don't know, but it's more for the audience. And if you agree to this, because I don't think that we spoke about. I don't think we spoke about this offline. So maybe doing a space or something just so that parents know what they can do, and not just parents, like people. I see people that are in their like mid-20s get caught into that stuff. And not only that, the parents who are victim of, their teenagers or young adults getting indoctrinated into those nihilistic cults, they also become a victim of these cults by way of they become so depressed and black-pilled that they're not willing to do anything about it. Like the methods that they use to actually help law enforcement move forward, they don't know what to do. They might write a letter to some news here and there, but it's like, did you contact law enforcement? Did you speak to the FBI? They're like, oh, what's the point? Nobody cares. Like, okay, so they got you too, not just your kid, because obviously, like, you don't have the drive to do anything about it. You think it's all over. You're black pilled. That's what they do. It's a nihilistic cult. So there's the two sides of the victims here when it comes to the kid, and there's also the parents on that side. So yeah, I really think it would be important to raise awareness.
No, I agree, and that's something that Stealth and I have talked about and worked with. Talked about it at length. I've talked about it since this is one of the things that I started exploring all the way going back to Butler. I've had a podcast with Chase Hughes about this. I think that it is very possible. We don't have any evidence of it right now necessarily when it comes to Tyler Robinson, things like that. But this is something that people need to be aware of, and it is online gaming. It is it is extremely pervasive, and our children and adults are extremely susceptible to this and vulnerable to some of these things. But no,
we have no immune system, and
No.
if TPUSA can do anything between high school and college campuses, is to teach young men and girls, because they're going to be mothers and fathers, God willing, when they get married. And by the way, for ASU, since I have Blake here, I think we should start to do stuff for like the sororities and fraternities there for matchmaking, like the Jews do to get kids married. These young, beautiful girls and boys. So I think this is something that I have no problem.
I mean, I think there's
been
like matchmaking events at like every AmFest. I think they usually do kind of a speed dating event.
Okay, well, something like from a religious perspective too. We could talk about it separately, but like something. But the best thing to show when you see these crazy leftist organizations is beautiful girls across America and beautiful young men successful in colleges that look healthy and fit and normal and have all their proper parts left on their body. Nobody's harmed them yet. Psychologically, they're athletes. They're doing sports. Is to promote them getting married and having kids young. If anything, I know that's what Charlie do, but. I think Paramount, I would love to see you on stage at like a TPUSA event or something, or teaching young men and kids about like what goes on in recruitment online and stuff like that, because then they can teach younger people underneath them. They can teach high school, their brothers, they can teach freshmen coming into universities, just it's also about like sleep deprivation and how people can recruit you online to just, it doesn't have to be towards just violence. It also is to make you a less productive human being and how to stay productive. And this is something that there's not a lot of support for kids when they're going into university and they're away from home about how to keep a schedule. It's the hardest transition time for them. And there is
everything about the university is a system that ends up isolating you from social life. Meanwhile, you have the other side. It's either party hard when you escape that system, or if you don't get into the party scene, you become super isolated. So there needs to be like some kind of middle ground. Sorry, I cut you off.
No, yeah. But I think this is just like, if you have a 21-year-old athlete on campus speaking to younger kids that are coming in as freshmen and they're involved with TPUSA or conservative movements, be like, listen, this is the danger. This is what we face online. And you could be a totally normal kid 6 months ago, and then 3 months from now, you, yourself, your friends, your parents, your girlfriend won't even recognize you because of this conditioning that's occurring online. And we're going to teach you what cognitive warfare is.
Within 6 months, you go from a normal Mormon kid to dating a furry and then end up shooting Charlie Kirk.
Yes.
I mean, that's
2 months. Some people, like some parents I speak to, it's like as quickly as 2 months.
Yeah. All right, real quick, I want to get Kit Kelly in here. Kit, go ahead.
Hi, good evening, Gary. How are you?
I'm doing great. Any better there'd be two of me. Let's go.
I don't know if it's a question or a comment. You can let me know, but I watched your roundtable earlier today.
Yes.
I really liked it. I was really frustrated. I don't know, Tippy, Biffy, Bucky, Carlson, I guess. I don't know.
Oh, you're talking okay. You're talking about folks, it's up in the Jumbotron. I did that part really wasn't a debate. I mean, I guess it kind of went into, but it was more meant to be a discussion, a respectful discussion. I was invited to go down and talk with, invited to this event with Brandon Straka and several people from multiple sides of this. If you haven't watched it, I haven't watched it yet. But anyways, you guys go watch it. I put it up in the Jumbotron. You guys can go check that out. But thank you.
Yeah, it was really good. Yeah, I would tell everybody to watch it. It's definitely. I got a little bit more frustrated. I'm a yeller, so I was yelling at the screen. My daughter had to tell me to calm down. But
well, did you get at Buckley Paramount? Did you? I mean, he wasn't wearing socks, so that's where I was.
Look. It was the way that format was. You had to hold back, but when he started saying something dumb, I definitely cut him off pretty quick. And I don't remember everything that happened. I have to go watch it to even kind of assess my own performance. But I tried to freaking cut some of the BS that some of these people were spewing as respectfully as I could without looking like an asshole on, national. It really wasn't national.
Well,
TV.
I wanted to ask you was, I noticed, at one point everybody was like, this isn't about Candace. And you were like, because she is the head of the snake. I always say she's the head of the snake. But I did notice also that it seems to be a little bit of a a turning, like a shift, I feel, and I don't know if you agree with me or not, but I feel like people are getting, they're not pushing back as much. Like when you were talking and Viva, was it Viva?
Yeah.
Was
Viva la Fre-
talking.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like there wasn't as much, like it used to be, it was like they just kept going and going because they believe the craziest stuff. And then at some point it just felt like you articulated and he articulated, and they're realizing that like between what they saw come out that was considered evidence or at the pretrial stuff or whatever, I feel like they're losing ground, if you know what I mean. And so it didn't seem like they were arguing back as much, but I didn't like the part where the room was kind of quiet and everybody was like, well, it's like it could be like a lot of plausible things. And then of course Biffy or Bucky or whatever, he turns around and he's
Buckley.
like, he's or Israel. And I was like, of course, there it is. I was just waiting for somebody to bring that up, but they do feel a shift. I feel like they're starting to back off a little bit more because their arguments are they're not holding any weight anymore. Do you know what I mean?
The only way that these arguments even sound rational, and not even that, is when you can sit in front of a camera and you have no opposition. If you got me or Viva Frey or Brick Suit or Dave Pollock across there, and like, it's not hard to push back and make you look and sound stupid because your arguments are stupid and they only work in a vacuum. And when you have somebody that's pushing back, you just you can see it in their face. They're like, yeah, that's retarded. Like,
Gary, they don't even rise to the level of argument.
No, they're not.
They're generally just appeals. I mean, they're not even arguments.
And they're fantasy. It's fantasy. It's childlike. Well, it's possible. Yeah. So
it's an appeal to fantasy. Yeah. You're right. It's an appeal to bias. It's like a virus. It's really not quite living, but it has elements of an argument. It's simply an appeal. And that's why it's so virulent. It's like a virus. It doesn't have to have the logical components of a real argument.
No, I agree.
Are you guys referring to Buckley Carlson? Are you talking about Buckley Carlson or which
yes,
different
Buckley Carlson?
Oh, yes. The great intellect. Okay. I'm saying sarcastically. Okay. Go ahead. Sorry.
Did you have anything else? I cut you off there, Kick. Did you have anything else?
No. I just wanted to know your opinion on that because I felt like a while ago it was a real strong and they were like constantly like coming at, just biting at the bit. And I feel like it's slowed down a little bit. And a lot of people, will say, oh, I don't think Andrew debating Candace really had any effect, but I think it actually did.
Oh, I did.
I think it,
yeah.
I think when you go into the logistics, like, people looking at who won, what side, you can do that or whatever. But when you think about it, all it did was show, she really had nothing to give us. She had nothing to say that anybody could go. She didn't even back up all the people that have been supporting her and all the things that she's been saying. She didn't even say the thing.
Well, that's one of the things. Yes. So that's one of the things that I pointed out, the importance of that. And I do think that it had a bigger impact than anybody will give it credit for. Probably even more than I realize. And one of the big things there that we noticed right off the bat is the things that she would say in front of a camera. And how vigorously that she would say those things, how much confidence. She didn't even make those same arguments in front of another person. And this is like where you're saying, I feel like these people were arguing more vigorously at the beginning than not now. Like, no, we've seen a bunch of people that can sit there and pretend something in front of a camera. But every time these people get in front of you, like we saw in that, and like we saw with Andrew Wilson. And that discussion that I had, and by the way, like we prior to that, we were like, look, we all want to be respectful. We don't want to turn this into like a shouting match. This is more of a discussion. It's slightly meant to be a debate, but it needs to be discussed. But because originally Brandon didn't even want to do it, and again, he was trying to be, and everybody was there like, no, like this is a discussion we need to have. And I pushed for it very hard for that reason. Like I knew what was going to be seen. And I knew what was going to be said, and I knew that it would look as foolish as it actually is to reasonable people. That debate, whether Andrew Wilson or that discussion with me and the other people that were kind of on my side of that changed nobody's mind on my side. That changed nobody's mind on Candace's side. But there's a lot of people that are going to tune into that haven't been watching this, or you might want to call them the independent voters, right? Those are the people that matter.
Right.
And by the way, that's like 90+% of the population. Like 90+% of the population are not paying attention to this entire thing. That's the reality. It's like a very small percentage on social media and a very small percentage on X and everything else that are kind of.
Oh, half of Americans don't even vote.
Yeah, like it's a very small percentage that are embroiled in this. And, so like we have a lot on our side to lose if we don't have persuasive arguments and or if we don't know the facts of the case. And
yeah, I feel like she's been a lot quieter on this vacation trip than she was on the last one. She doesn't seem like she's as vocal. And then, of course,
how many vacations does this woman go on? I think I was making jokes about how many vacations she takes. I think 2 vacations ago. I think this is her 7th vacation this year.
Does anybody know where she? Does anybody know where she?
I think this one she's house shopping, likely in either Dubai or Russia. Just my 2 cents there.
If everybody knows, it is documented. I was the first person that said over a year and a half ago that she was going to be in Russia by the end of the year, and I was right, and I was right again and again and again. Which is why Gary, do you know that Cuban military intelligence aired a show about me in my spaces and on Cuban military intelligence on their national. Yeah. So now, because anyways, don't ask. Talked about so much of the Cuban organization at UVU and otherwise, but yes, so I am featured there now. Some of the Cuban guys came in because I organically ran the free Cuba movement, just like, for no reason. And now because the whole 92 thing with Candace Owens featuring, me as this person who started a 5-person group chat.
The mastermind behind the 92-person cabal.
To do prayers.
Represent.
No, but my thing was only 5 people. Everybody added people in there. It's just a group chat for prayers. We're going to do Psalms to Hillam, actually. But doing the Psalms for Mrs. Kirk. And I thought that's what it was like. It was the most, and then I never went into the group chat. I still have not looked at all the group chats that I'm in, but I'm just saying it's very funny that it went from there and that it's featured on. Listen, we're living in a very strange time. I hope she goes on more vacations. She needs to spend more time with her family.
I agree. She definitely needs more vacations.
Well, that's all I wanted to ask you.
Needs more vacations.
I will help her move. If she wants to go to Russia, I will pack up stuff for her. I will buy the plane ticket. Yeah.
Her husband is rich. Don't do it for free, please.
Oh no, this I'll do for free. It's a service to the country.
No, you don't. As your financial advisor since 2 seconds ago, I'm not gonna let you do that.
Just don't go in the inner sanctum of her children. Whatever you do, that's the garage. Nick Roy, go ahead.
Hey Gary, how you doing?
I'm doing great, man. How are you?
Good. So we've never spoken before. You probably have never seen anything that I've ever posted before, I would imagine. And I would say I fall pretty starkly on the other side of this whole Candace Owens, Charlie Kirk thing. However, like I think anybody who does know me, like I'm pretty, I'd say I'd use the word friends with Britta. We talk fairly often, and I think she would attest to the fact that I'm.
Well, your profile says you're most nominated to be Baron Coleman's intern. But go ahead.
Yes. Nonetheless, I think Britta would attest to the fact that I'm a pretty good faith conversationalist, and
sounds good.
One thing that I was thinking about, you guys were just talking about the debate with Candace and Andrew, and I was just genuinely curious how many people you think watched that debate, and regardless of what they think about the issue itself more broadly, in the context of that debate, how many people you actually think came out of that thinking that Andrew Wilson won the debate? And I have a reason for my view on it, apart from my view on the issues themselves. I feel like it's just kind of undeniable that the two claims, because at the very beginning of the debate, they both stated what their claims they were defending were. I think his claim was that the evidence is overwhelming that Tyler Robinson is guilty. And then her claim was something, it was like that the evidence is overwhelming that he was a patsy. Okay, now, I didn't feel like they really focused much on her side of things. And I think probably some of you guys have pointed that out, that like when it came
she had
to
no
her,
evidence. That's what Andrew was there to prove.
I mean, like
All right,
what I would
look,
say.
hey, everybody, real quick. Again, if you want to talk, put up a hand. What I don't like is people jumping in, and it becomes hard for even guests that we disagree with to form their own thoughts. And I will give you guys time to, if you bring something up that you guys want to counterpoint, I'll give it to you. But anyway,
I appreciate that.
Yep.
Appreciate it. So yes, and I think if you watch that debate looking to see Candace defend her claims, that's not what you're going to see. And I think maybe a lot of people expected that, or are going to think, oh, that was the point of the debate. And maybe behind the scenes, that was the intended purpose of the debate. I don't know. I don't know these people. But what I do know is that as a viewer watching the debate, the first thing stated at the beginning was, this is the claim I'm defending, and this is the claim I'm defending. And for Andrew Wilson's claim, which I think they focused on his claim most of the time. They got into like her broader theories about different things a little bit, but they mostly focused on his claim. And what I wanted to say is, like, when he says in the debate, I think close to the end of the debate, he says, okay, we stalemated on the issue of whether the evidence was overwhelming. And at the very beginning of the debate, he says, okay, my claim is that the evidence for Tyler Robinson being guilty is overwhelming, but all I mean by that is that it convinces me. Can you kind of see how, like, as somebody, like, regardless, because, okay, I'm in Canada right now.
Yeah.
And
no, I hear what you're, I understand I understand your point. Here's what I would say. I would say that the amount of evidence to support that Tyler is the one that did it is overwhelming, in the sense that there is no other evidence at all that anyone else did it. And I think that if we go on classical debate terms, like being able to present the actual evidence as opposed to what they feel, what they, like coming up with these additional theories where you don't trust the evidence or whatever else, which is what Candace mostly did, in my opinion. And she spent a lot of time filibustering and talking in circles, in my opinion. But I mean, that is where we're at with all this. Like, you can say whatever you'd like about this, but there is no other evidence that anyone else was involved, period. And all the
I could grant that point.
Yeah.
I could grant that point,
and I think
just
that
for the sake of,
and I think that's like the most important point, especially when you go on the record and imply and directly accuse people like Turning Point USA and or Candace Owens, of Erica Kirk, of being involved in the assassination of Charlie Kirk. So that is where I think most of us, I would never, and this is kind of the point that Andrew Wilson made too, I would never ever freaking even criticize someone if they're saying, hey, I don't trust this evidence. I mean, I might be jumping to that discussion debate, but I would have no animus toward anyone that says, hey, you know what, I just don't trust what the government is doing or anything else. It's fine. That's your right as a citizen. What you don't have the right to do is start accusing people with little to no evidence. And if we set that standard here in the United States, that we could just start destroying people's lives, because that's real people. Like Blake Neff is a real person. Andrew Colvette's a real person. And people are mixing their feelings of, I don't like them, or even Erica Kirk, like, I didn't like what she wears. She gives me bad vibes. And that's not evidence. And if we devolve into a society that accepts that, and that's where we're going with this, I think that is a real danger.
That's totally fair. But I think you're maybe thinking of a bit more big picture than I am, because you're talking about these moral values about things. But I'm purely looking at the debate itself. Like I said, I could abstract myself from my own personal views on the issue itself, but I still find myself seeing this debate as the debate. Again, that's why I said, aside from who you think is correct on the issues, when I'm seeing people posting like, oh, Andrew Wilson destroyed her in this debate, or like, it was a landslide win for Andrew Wilson. I'm just saying, like, can you see how that seems a little disingenuous?
No, I agree with that assessment. I would say that he absolutely destroyed her, because the evidence that he provided to support his claim was 10 times what she's provided to support her claim.
But he didn't feel that way.
Oh, hold on.
He didn't feel that way.
Oh, yeah,
I think I probably speak for most people in that I did not watch the debate. I was actually doing the Friday show at that time, so I've not watched it. So I've only seen specific clips. And I imagine that is actually how most people either consume the debate or will remember the debate, because they're going to remember what clips got put out. You know, it's a 3-hour thing. And I think the most damaging clip for Wilson is just that, you know, the one where he's kind of like confronting her on the specific charges, and then like she knows the specific charges and he doesn't, which is like an embarrassing moment, but also really kind of about what either of them are claiming. I think the most damaging thing with Candace is when he's like asking her, like, why did you say you're like overwhelmingly confident, or whatever the exact line was, about Israel and France being involved? And she's immediately backpedaling to like, that's just my opinion, man. And like, she's very clearly like, there's clips of her being afraid to say anything because she suddenly is realizing she could get sued for stuff that she like, you know, she's kind of like a boxer who can't take a punch, that she's been incredibly over.
Is that him breaking up, or is that me?
Yeah, I think he's over. Blake, you're over bending.
Yeah, I get that. And like, look, I enjoy the clips, and I think the clips are funny, and you know, there's some funny lines in there, and they both got some you know, points, if you want to call that, in the debate. But I don't think the part with the 7 charges was really the biggest gotcha moment for Candace. I thought the worst moment for Andrew Wilson was the moment when he said, "We stalemated on my claim." Right? Like, I think that is...
I think what he said was, at the beginning of the debate, he said, I believe the evidence is overwhelmingly compelling. And at the end, he said, I still believe the evidence is overwhelmingly compelling that Tyler Robinson was the killer. And I think all he was addressing, and maybe he didn't do it perfectly, was, I don't believe I changed your mind, and I didn't think that you know, you thought you changed my mind either. So yes, he was consistent at the beginning and end, if memory serves. But you asked initially how many people watched, and I think that's a great question, because it took me about 2.2 seconds to just go on YouTube and look, and that number is there. And I think it goes to the point of the debate. You're not going to convince people that are already convinced by their biases. And that's most people, regardless of which side you're on. Now, you know, one side is obviously correct. That's just a logical proposition. But you're not going to know it by how strongly you feel that you're correct. But why am I not mentioning how many people watched it? Well, this is just something anyone could search in 2 seconds. It's like, you can't take someone to the facts and make them want to know enough to put in the effort to understand. You know, we can't make you understand if you don't want to understand. You know, Mark Twain said something to the extent of, you might change someone's mind, but they'll never forgive you for it. He's also made more critical statements on this issue. So yeah, anyone can find out how many people watched. And it was already stated.
I didn't ask how many people watched, just for the record. That was.
What did you ask?
My question was how many people watched it, leaving with the notion that Andrew Wilson won in a landslide.
Well, that was discussed before he came up here. I mean, essentially, that was already answered by Gary. He said the people that were the independents that hadn't made up their mind, they were the ones that thought he won. The people that were biased, they just came and left with their biases, like most people do, watching most debates.
Yeah, and I guess my point was that's not been what I observed, or from people that I've talked to who have, you know, very, very little active interest in this issue, but who maybe saw the debate just because it was kind of this big thing.
So you have an anecdote. Great. A Candace fan.
Let me ask you this, Nick. What do you think was Andrew Wilson's strongest, like his strongest time in the debate? Like what was the strongest argument that you felt most compelling?
Yeah, I think probably his strongest moment was when he started asking for the quote unquote positive evidence stuff. I think that was probably his strongest moment in the debate. But why I think that falls flat for a lot of viewers is because okay, and again, you may take this as bias, but it's just, you know, maybe I am biased, but it's the way that I viewed it, is that Candace was evading those questions, maybe because she couldn't answer or didn't want to answer. Maybe. I'm not going to say that's not possible, but how I took it was, okay, you know, those questions are not having to do with our 2 official claims in this debate. You know, it seemed to me like he was jumping the gun on the claims of the debate, because his claim was the evidence that Tyler is guilty is overwhelming, and her claim was that the evidence that Tyler is a patsy is overwhelming. And I think even when he was asking for positive evidence, he was asking for the positive evidence about the wrong claims. I think jumping to the Erica and the France and the Israel issues, I think that was actually a bad move. And he could have used that. He could have used that line more against the actual stuff relevant to the legal case, because that's what their official claims were about. When they were negotiating out, Candace said, yeah, we can get to that stuff after, but we're going to settle these two claims first. And so I think he kind of jumped the gun on that, and that could have made him come across a lot stronger from my point of view. But again, you might see that as bias.
So if we go back to the
to
prompts,
to that point.
Go ahead, Zach. Go ahead.
To that point, Nick, so there's three things here. First, he wanted to get to the point where he was asking her to defend her claims. That was the very last segment. So he was trying to race through the first two segments as quickly as possible, make the points he could make, and then move on to that third one. He's already said that was the strategy because he knew he was only going to get 3.5 hours. And if they got to that, if she wasted all the time in the first two, he wasn't going to get to the whole point that he wanted to get in there.
Which she did waste that time, and she did talk at least 3/4 of the entire debate. I wish someone would AI analyze that to see how long she was running her mouth, saying absolutely nothing, providing not one single positive fact, which she didn't understand what the phrase meant. He should have said hard fact, but that's fine.
Yeah, and to that, going right into my next point, Viva. So you're reading my mind. So there's two ways to look at a debate. When you're looking at an academic debate, you want to look, did they present any evidence? Did they make their case? In this, Andrew made a case. Whether you agree that he made a strong case or not is irrelevant. Candace didn't make a case at all. So it's like watching a football game where one team scores 40 points and the other scores none. They may have had a great offense, but if they're not getting in the end zone, they're still not scoring. They're going to get their butts kicked. And that's what happened here. Andrew, even though he may not have made it the best case, he still scored points. Candace didn't even try. And she even admitted that in her opening statement that she had nothing. So he basically, you can see his analysis that he's given afterwards, that he said.
And Andrew's argument at the beginning was it was simply that he found the evidence compelling. He didn't even say that you must find it compelling, just him. Whereas Candace makes a far greater assertion. She says, no, I believe essentially there's no way that Tyler was the shooter at 0%.
Yeah, and so I mean, she conceded it all at the start. Now, the other way to look at a debate, and this is how Candace approached it, is trying to score PR points. If you look at how she approached it, she wanted to gish gallop, and then she wanted to score a few little one-liners here and there. That's where the whole "I can't understand it for you" it came from. It meant nothing because it wasn't irrelevant to what was being asked, but she can get that one-liner, and that's going to get clipped. She's playing the clip game with it. She's going to win a few points in the PR battle there, but overall, in terms of the actual debate, she got crushed.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you this, Nick. What do you think was the strongest evidence that she provided that he is indeed a patsy?
Look, I'll agree with you. I don't think she did, but that's not why I think Andrew Wilson lost the debate, because
wouldn't you agree that wouldn't you agree that if she provided zero evidence that he's a patsy and Andrew provided a fairly significant amount of evidence, and there is plenty of evidence that he is the shooter, I mean, just on those terms alone, wouldn't you say that she lost the debate by a significant margin?
This debate was kind of, to my mind, a little irregular in its structuring based on the fact that there were two separate claims in dispute, right? She had her claim, he had his claim. And
there was no structure. It was a free flow debate. Did you read the exchange?
Hold on, everybody. Let him finish. Again, I don't want people jumping in. I will let you guys talk, but I just want to have this conversation with Nick. Go ahead, Nick.
Yeah, I get people take this personally, but I'm not attacking anybody here. I'm just talking about my thoughts here. There are two claims, and while they're connected, I think in some important ways they're distinct from each other. And I don't think Candace proved her claim. I'm not making that claim. Maybe there's some people that would say that.
Well, I would say that she not only didn't prove her claim, she didn't provide a scintilla of evidence to support the claim, and that's where I say that Andrew Wilson just objectively absolutely destroyed her. I mean, there's zero evidence. I mean, can you come up with some evidence that would say that he is a patsy, like actual evidence that he's a patsy whatsoever?
I would ask the question of what the standard for evidence here is, because is it the same as the Utah law standard of evidence?
No, she didn't give a single try. She just passed on it. So it's not even that you have a standard of evidence. She didn't try to give anything.
So to answer your question, any standard of evidence, go.
He didn't ask, unless I misunderstood the question, he didn't ask what evidence Candace presented. He asked what evidence I would think.
Well, I would say
correct?
both. Number one, what evidence does she present at all, by any standard, that he's a patsy? And then I would ask you, what evidence do you, because clearly you believe he is, I would assume. So what evidence are you going off of that he's a patsy?
Yeah, so to answer the first part, in terms of what evidence she presented, like I said before, I don't think she necessarily presented any evidence. But one of the things I wish about the debate was that it was longer. I think it was too short. I think probably a lot of people were a little dissatisfied with it. I thought they had actually originally said that this was going to be like as long as they need. Was that not what they originally said?
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was too short too, and I wish they would have done more fact checking while the debate was, regardless of how long it took. But yeah, that's fine. Okay,
Yeah.
but I'm asking you, what evidence do you have that he's a patsy in any regard?
Yeah, so I mean, just kind of as a normal person seeing stuff, something that I find compelling is at least the possibility that the waiter or whatever from the steakhouse is telling the truth, right? And that may seem ridiculous to some people, but I'm not going to assume he's lying, and he's an eyewitness of somebody being there, where, you know, again, he might be lying. That's totally possible.
I don't
there's
necessarily
not
think he's
even any-
lying. I think that we found that eyewitnesses are you know, universally not that great, especially on something like that, where you meet somebody and then retroactively, like, I think that person looks like him. And the other problem with what his statement is, he told Diligent Denizen that that person had a couple of beers, and then what's on the receipt. I think it's more likely that Diligent Denizen's lying about the receipt. But again, we have the receipt that has a soda. I mean, that's a pretty big distinction, and that doesn't seem like something that would be easily forgotten. So, like, the evidence doesn't even corroborate the eyewitness testimony. And then the other thing is, I personally have talked to the owner of that place, and even if I don't think it's him, and I think the FBI would absolutely look at his financial statements and prove that one way or the other. I think the FBI would absolutely check his cell phone GPS data and would corroborate or, you know, confirm or deny this information. But I even talked to the owner, and he's like, look, on the back roads, if you wanted to speed, you could get to that place in about 1 hour and 45 minutes. So, like, even if it's him, it still fits within the timeline. There's no exonerating evidence that's presented at all. And, you know, based on even, like, there's a lot of other inconsistencies between what that guy said, the waiter, regarding how he remembered, you know, his voice, but, you know, did he talk to him? Like, and then of course, you know, the couple of beers versus what we actually have on the receipt is, you know, a soda. I mean, that's like, eyewitnesses are not very good. And he is a very, like, and this is the other thing too, it's a little funny that, you know, he said he saw pictures and recognized them. But on your side, you guys claim that you can't recognize Tyler from the surveillance footage. So, I mean, you got to pick one.
Gary, can I say something real quick?
Very quickly, yes.
To this person.
Mm-hmm.
There's Candace and Diligent and all these people, witnesses, and the steakhouse. Tyler himself could show a receipt, people, with a bank statement. So do they think he's just playing killer in a movie, or what?
Yeah.
Tyler himself can provide that. That's all I want.
Well, Tyler's so committed to the conspiracy, he's willing to go to the gas chamber for it, of course. And his family is so committed to the conspiracy, they're willing to not speak up and say that we didn't turn him in.
Exactly.
Nick, do you want to respond to any of that?
I mean, not I don't really know what there is to respond to, except that I just don't think that's a very accurate reading of how, just based on my experience, that's not how legal cases often go. And okay, look,
If you wouldn't prevent,
Hold
you
on.
wouldn't present evidence
Nobody,
that
hold on.
that
Nobody
proves
cut
you're
him
innocent?
off, please.
Viva,
Hold on.
Viva, what's your profession?
No, nobody cut him off, and then I will let you guys respond. Go ahead, Nick.
yeah, I think there's two sides to this. On the one hand, there's a lot of people who are saying, okay, the prosecution has not presented convincing evidence, and people who want to defend that will say, oh, well, they haven't shown it yet. Okay, and that's totally possible. There may be evidence that comes out that totally proves he was guilty. On the other side, I don't think it's fair to say that before the trials even happened, the fact that Tyler or any of his family haven't spoken out about this necessarily means anything, because there may be strategy reasons for not doing that yet. So, if it gets to the trial and none of this comes out, I would be the first one to say, okay, yeah, the fact that he's not saying this probably means something because we're in the trial now. But I think, like you guys have been saying, I don't want to generalize saying you guys, but you know what I mean. On that respective side have been saying, okay, well, it's not trial yet. You can't expect to see all the evidence before the trial. I would say in the same way, the fact that Tyler hasn't shown everybody a receipt yet to exonerate himself, especially when we're just in the preliminary stages here, doesn't really prove anything to me.
Well, I don't want to be mean, but actually, like, it would, if you have exonerating evidence when you're at the probable cause stage that could spare your client from spending literally like 3 years in prison, 2.5 years in prison before you go to trial, I think you probably would. And every lawyer I've spoken to has said that you would.
Yeah.
Like, he's already been in prison for a year, and supposedly this like receipt would be this big. If he had an alibi that would stone cold show he could not have physically been present for the things the state alleges, I think they would present that so that their client doesn't spend, minimum 5% of his adult life in prison on a crime that they could trivially disprove.
Yeah, man, but I'm just not convinced by your 100% objective argument. I'm sorry. I'm just not convinced by it, man. I just don't feel good about it.
Hold on. Like, you're not convinced. Okay, but why not? Like, what I would say is, like, so
he's being sarcastic. He's being sarcastic. Yeah.
You're concerned about the receipt, but
can I respond to Blake?
Go ahead, Nick. Was that Nick saying that? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. Hey, Blake. I get where you're coming from, but in my mind, if it is the case that Tyler has exonerating evidence, then I think that would be pretty good evidence, not proof, but evidence that he had been set up. Okay. So let's say he had this exonerating evidence that at the same time as it exonerates him, also illuminates the fact that he was set up by somebody. That would put him in a very dangerous situation. And so I could see that as reason to wait until trial. And again, like, none of this, I'm not making any definitive claims here. I'm just trying to think through what's reasonable. And I do think
I'm going to push back on that. How is that reasonable? Can you name a single case that has worked that way? Where like someone was set up by a grand conspiracy and so like they had to behave that way in trial. You say it's
not just that. The most dangerous thing in his case, if that were the case, is sitting in prison where he could be taken out very easily.
Yeah.
So that whole line of thinking doesn't
where
make
he could get Epstein, maybe? Does anyone remember Epstein?
Well, everybody's forgetting about the fact that it's actually a crime. It's illegal for exculpatory evidence to be withheld. And the investigators investigated everything. If you don't think that the investigators have his bank statements and all of these things, and if the prosecution didn't give over exculpatory evidence, that's a literal crime.
If the prosecution or the defense.
I can say I have a close personal friend who I know, intimately. Intimately is the wrong word, but we're a close personal friend who was charged with a much less serious but still criminal offense by prosecutors, and he was in fact innocent, and he was like any person in the world who thinks and they're innocent, or even not thinks they're innocent but still doesn't want to go to jail. Stop, Josie. I just literally started talking. Who thinks they're innocent he presented evidence before trial to the prosecutor before trial, and there was no 5-day hearing, and it was just like sort of a series of preliminary hearings to set up an eventual long in the distance trial. And the prosecutor, who was once the prosecutor who was assigned to the case, finally took a look at the evidence or lack thereof, withdrew the charge way before they ever reached trial. What criminal defense lawyer or defendant, even guilty or innocent, but they don't want to go to jail, would say, I'm going to wait, as kind of to Blake's point, I'm going to wait 1, 2, 3, 4 years, and then drop this bombshell at trial. And in the meantime, I'm sitting in jail waiting for this to happen. It makes no sense. It would behoove any even incompetent criminal defense lawyer to present
sitting in jail where you could be easily Epstein by the Epstein class if you believe in such
especially if there's
a
a
thing.
conspiracy. Exactly. Especially if there's a conspiracy involved, we're like, they're going to try to get to him and silence him.
I do think it's important to know that literally every lawyer, I know this is like the defense that keep people on Nick's side keep saying, oh, they're waiting for trial to prove his innocence. Like every competent lawyer that I've talked to, multitude of them, is like, no, any sort of exculpatory evidence that would provide an alibi, like a very strong, like, hey, this guy isn't the one, that would have been presented at the probable cause hearing. And I think it's pure fantasy that's coming from your side that is saying otherwise. But one thing I do want to say is I will tell you, Nick, you're welcome to our spaces anytime. And I will grant you that I think you're the most good faith person that I've discussed this with. So I just want to say that I at least appreciate that. Stand by, Nick. Don't go anywhere. I do want to get to
no, I was just going to say, Gary,
yeah,
thank you very much for having me on. I appreciate you've been hospitable and very good faith as well. I am again at that time of night over here where I got to put my son to bed.
No, you're not going anywhere.
I'm afraid I must. But
okay, then answer my question real quick. Lindsay Clancy and Candace Owens' opinion on that case. And ladies and gentlemen, I think that here we have somebody who believes that a woman who murdered her own 3 children is not accountable nor at fault for doing so. Is that the kind of person you align your line of logic with, sir?
Are you insinuating that I believe that about? Is that what you said?
Well, you do take your opinion. You base your opinion on someone who has such judgment.
Why are you saying I base my opinion on her judgment?
Well, you do believe the
like,
theory. You do take Candace Owens' side on that,
right?
right?
I don't think it's her side. And just for the record, in terms of the Lindsay Clancy thing, I would disagree with Candace on that.
So doesn't that discredit her from her own opinions?
No, we don't need to take that tack. That doesn't follow necessarily.
I think that's
it does show lack of judgment. I'll grant that. It does show a lack of judgment, but it doesn't prove anything about this Robinson opinion that Candace has.
I think the more good,
it attacks the credibility of the person making claims.
Yes,
it does. That irrelevant?
Well, hold on, that's fine, but I think the more good faith approach of this is, Nick, do you think that Lindsay Clancy is not guilty of killing her kids for any reason?
No, I not necessarily. I don't know anything about it except what I've heard on the news and what it sounds like. Like my belief, I believe in free will. So I think even if you have drug addiction or are dealing with mental health stuff, I still think that ultimately on some level you have a choice over your actions.
But why don't you believe that she was possibly framed like you believe Tyler Robinson was possibly framed? It could just be all made to look like she killed her children, right? Or why can't that be a possibility for you?
If you want to look into that, you're more than welcome to.
Well, no, I'm asking you what's the difference? You believe that Tyler Robinson could be a patsy, but so why can't Clancy be a patsy as well?
And you believe that Erica Kirk could have killed Charlie Kirk,
hasn't
Lindsay
looked into
Clancy
the
could have
case.
killed her children?
Yeah, I mean, I think what he's saying is he hasn't looked into the case, and that's what it sounds like to me. So
look at Paramount steel manning his argument. You're a good man, Paramount.
I mean, I just want to be again.
Did I make an argument?
What's that?
Not really. You can go to bed now.
I said I don't believe. I disagree with Candace. I do not believe that.
But you agree that Erica could be the one who killed Charlie Kirk? Like seriously?
I never said that.
Well, that's what Candace believes.
Yeah, I don't know why you're holding me to Candace's beliefs. I know a lot of people
because
who
you're
agree.
defending them.
No, I'm defending my beliefs, and I know a lot of people who've never even heard
Your
of Candace
beliefs
Owens,
based
to
off
be
of
honest.
Candace Owens' belief, yes or no?
You don't need to badger him.
Yeah,
So-
like.
All right.
All right, listen up, folks. I said 12, and then I said 12:30. We're a full hour after. Listen, I appreciate everybody tuning in tonight, and appreciate the support. Appreciate everybody that shared the space. Appreciate everybody being civil and respectful. Nick, I appreciate you tuning in, and again, you are by far the best representation I've seen from your side, to be honest with you. So I appreciate the civility.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, and it's a rarity. I mean, you are a you're a shining beacon on a sea of insanity. So I'm just, well, I'm not really, but yeah, I'm trying to be nice to you. Anyway,
Is this like the tallest midget kind of thing,
Yeah,
or what?
exactly.
Okay.
No, I appreciate. You're welcome anytime. It was a good discussion.
All right, you guys have a good night.
You too, buddy. Everybody, I'm going to bed. I appreciate you tuning in. Everybody on the channel, real quick, I got like 2 super chats that I got to hit. One is fix is the wrong word. Try repair our elections or something similar, not fix, because fix is misconstrued. Yeah, I think most people know what we're saying, but I hear what you're saying too. Words have meaning. Left X, but 3 words against Flock: shoot, move, communicate. Levoy Finnegan was ambushed and murdered by the feds. Combined social credit score with tracking all movements in the COVIDian hysteria. Nope, that is a great point too. It's not just the Flock cameras; it's all the other things they're trying to implement. And then we start, censoring social media again. We start going through everything that went through with COVID. Combine that with Flock cameras, I think it's a extremely dangerous and tyrannical combination. But I appreciate you all. And until next time, stay armed, stay ready. We'll talk to you soon.